You found the Stealth Podcast. Tonight, we'll travel through dark and lonely stories. Where in the world are you watching from? What time is it there? Subscribe and leave your like to support us. Let's begin. My name is Leif Darrow, and I'm 32 years old. I live in Portland, Oregon, where I've worked as a freelance photographer for the past 6 years. Last summer, I decided to convert my 2008 Sprinter van into what the internet dubbed a mobile studio apartment. The freedom to travel while maintaining my career was irresistible. The plan was simple: drive down the Pacific coast, capturing landscapes for my portfolio while living cheaply on the road. My journey eventually led me to Mendocino, California, a picturesque coastal town that promised both work opportunities and breathtaking scenery. I'd been on the road for 3 weeks when I arrived in Mendocino. The quaint town, with its Victorian architecture and dramatic cliff views, seemed perfect for my photography series on coastal communities. I spent the first day scouting locations, chatting with locals at a coffee shop where I met Eliza, a pottery artist who invited me to photograph her studio the following day. She had wild curly hair and a warm smile that made me feel immediately welcome in this unfamiliar place. The light here is unlike anywhere else, Eliza told me as we walked along the headlands that evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in terrifying shades of orange and red. It's why so many artists come here. She pointed to a secluded dirt road leading into a grove of cypress trees. If you're looking for a quiet spot to park overnight, that old logging road is perfect. Nobody bothers you there. I thanked her for the tip, unsuspecting of how that simple suggestion would change everything. The spot was indeed perfect, a small clearing surrounded by twisted cypress trees, just far enough from the main road to be private, but not so remote that I felt isolated. I fixed myself a simple dinner on my compact propane stove, scrolling through the day's photographs on my laptop. As darkness fell, a dense fog rolled in from the ocean, wrapping my van in an eerie white cocoon that muffled all sound. The silence was disturbing, almost too complete. I woke around midnight to the sound of something scratching against my van's exterior. At first, I dismissed it as branches in the wind, but when I checked my weather app, it showed completely still conditions. The scratching continued, methodical and deliberate, moving from the rear doors toward the driver's side where I slept. My heart pounded as I lay frozen, listening to the slow, deliberate sound making its way around my temporary home. Pulling back the blackout curtain just an inch, I peered into the fog. The motion-activated security light I'd installed should have illuminated anyone near the van, but it remained dark. The scratching stopped abruptly, replaced by a soft tapping on my window. Tap, 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 like someone gently knocking with a single knuckle. I held my breath, wondering if Eliza had followed me here, though that made no sense at this hour. "Hello," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. No response came except the tapping, which grew more insistent. I reached for my phone to call for help, but found no signal, not unusual in these remote coastal areas. The tapping stopped, and I heard what sounded like a camera shutter clicking repeatedly, followed by footsteps crunching slowly away through the underbrush. By morning, I convinced myself I'd imagined the whole disturbing episode. The fog had cleared, revealing a stunning view of the ocean from my elevated position. I made coffee and stepped outside to stretch my legs. That's when I noticed them. Dozens of small crosses made from twigs tied with red thread, surrounding my van in a perfect circle. At the base of each cross was a small Polaroid photograph, face down. With trembling fingers, I picked one up and turned it over. The image showed me, asleep inside my van, taken through my window sometime during the night. My hands shook as I gathered the disturbing photos, shoving them into my backpack without looking at them again. I needed to get out of there immediately. The beautiful scenery that had captivated me just yesterday now felt sinister, the twisted cypress trees resembling gnarled fingers reaching toward my van. As I fumbled with my keys, I noticed something that made my blood run cold: tiny droplets of red liquid on my driver's side door handle. I told myself it was paint, but deep down, I knew better. I drove straight into town, trying to appear calm while scanning every face I passed. Was it the old man reading his newspaper outside the cafe? The teenage girl walking her dog? Or perhaps Eliza herself? I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I parked in the busy public lot near the visitor center, where I felt marginally safer, and tried to process what was happening. The photos meant someone had been watching me, studying me, documenting my most vulnerable moments. The crosses suggested something ritualistic, something deeply disturbing. I decided to confront Eliza about the location she'd recommended. Her pottery studio was in a converted warehouse at the edge of town. When I arrived, the door was unlocked, but the studio appeared empty. "Eliza," I called out, my voice echoing against the high ceilings. Clay-covered tools were scattered across workbenches, and half-finished mugs sat on shelves waiting to be fired. A strong chemical smell permeated the air, stronger than what I'd expect from a pottery studio. "She's not here today," a voice said from behind me. I whirled around to face a tall, gaunt man with hollowed cheeks and piercing gray eyes. "I'm Marcus, her business partner. She mentioned you might stop by." Something about his gaze made me step backward. He noticed the movement and smiled, revealing unnaturally white teeth. "You're the van guy, right? The photographer? Eliza said you were staying at the old logging road." He took a step closer. "Did you sleep well out there? Lots of strange sounds in those woods at night." I mumbled something about needing to leave and backed toward the door. As I turned to go, I caught sight of something that stopped me cold. A wall of Polaroid photographs partially hidden behind a canvas tarp. Though I only glimpsed them for a second, I recognized the same red thread that had been used to bind the twig crosses. "Actually," Marcus called after me as I hurried out, "Eliza wanted me to invite you to dinner tonight. She's hosting a small gathering for local artists. 8 p.m. at her place on Cypress Lane." I practically ran back to my van, my mind racing. I needed to leave Mendocino immediately, but something held me back. Those photos on the wall. I needed to know if there were others like me, if there was a pattern I could report to the police. I sat in my van for hours, debating my next move while keeping an eye on the studio's entrance. As afternoon faded into evening, I saw Marcus emerge carrying a large garbage bag that he loaded carefully into the trunk of a black sedan. Against my better judgment, I decided to follow him. I kept a safe distance as he drove along the winding coastal road, eventually turning onto a narrow dirt path leading toward the ocean. The path ended at a small cabin perched precariously on the cliff's edge. Through my zoom lens, I watched as Marcus unloaded not one, but several garbage bags, dragging them toward the cliff rather than into the cabin. My stomach turned as I considered what might be inside those bags. As darkness fell, I made a decision that would prove nearly fatal. I would go to Eliza's dinner party, but first, I would stop by the police station and share my suspicions. The Mendocino Sheriff's Office was a small building with only 2 patrol cars parked outside. The desk officer listened to my story with growing skepticism, especially when I admitted I had no concrete evidence. I'd left the Polaroids in my panic and had only suspicions about Marcus's activities. "Look," the officer said finally. "Eliza Thorne and Marcus Weaver are respected members of this community. They run the town's most successful gallery. Without any actual evidence, there's nothing I can do." He gave me a business card and suggested I call if I found something concrete. I arrived at Eliza's house just after 8 p.m., my heart pounding so loudly I was certain anyone nearby could hear it. The house was an old Victorian perched on a bluff overlooking the ocean, its weathered blue paint peeling in places. Several cars were already parked in the circular driveway, confirming my hope that this was indeed a gathering and not a trap. I'd brought my camera, partly to maintain my cover as an interested photographer, but mostly because the small canister of bear spray I'd attached to my camera bag made me feel marginally safer. Eliza greeted me at the door with a glass of wine and that same warm smile that had seemed so genuine just yesterday. "Leaf, I'm so glad you could make it." She wore a flowing dress with a pattern that, upon closer inspection, resembled tiny red crosses. My pulse quickened as she led me through the house, introducing me to other guests, a painter, a sculptor, a jewelry maker. Everyone seemed normal, engaged in casual conversation about art shows and coastal weather patterns. Yet there was something off about the gathering, a subtle tension beneath the pleasantries. "Marcus mentioned you stopped by the studio today," Eliza said as she refilled my wine glass, her eyes never leaving mine. "I'm sorry I missed you." I nodded, watching her carefully as I sipped the wine. "I wanted to thank you for the recommendation on the camping spot," I replied, studying her reaction. It was quite memorable. Something flickered behind her eyes. Amusement? Anticipation? Before she could respond, Marcus appeared at her side. his hand possessively gripping her shoulder. Dinner was served in a formal dining room with large windows facing the dark ocean. I purposely sat with my back to the wall, unwilling to have anyone behind me. The food was exquisite. Seafood caught that day, Marcus proudly announced, but I merely pushed it around my plate, my appetite gone. As conversation flowed around me, I noticed subtle exchanges between Eliza and Marcus, meaningful glances that sent chills down my spine. Even more disturbing, I realized that 3 of the guests had the same vacant look in their eyes, their responses to questions slightly delayed, as if they were reading from a script. After dinner, Eliza suggested a tour of her private gallery. The other guests nodded enthusiastically, but their eyes showed a strange mixture of fear and resignation. We descended a narrow staircase into what must have been originally designed as a wine cellar. The temperature dropped noticeably, and the walls glistened with moisture. Motion-activated lights illuminated our path, revealing a long hallway with doors on either side. "My most personal work is kept down here," Eliza explained, her voice echoing against the stone walls. The first room contained what appeared to be conventional pottery, vases, bowls, sculptures. But as I looked closer, I realized each piece incorporated human elements. Fingers emerging from the rim of a bowl, an ear seamlessly integrated into the handle of a mug, lips frozen in a silent scream at the mouth of a vase. "Beautiful, aren't they?" Marcus whispered, suddenly beside me. "Eliza has a gift for capturing the essence of her subjects." I nodded mutely, backing away toward the next room. What I saw there nearly made me vomit. Photographs covered every inch of wall space, hundreds of them, showing people in various stages of terror. Some were clearly taken without the subject's knowledge. Others documented what could only be described as torture. And there, on the center wall, was a collection of images that made my heart stop. Photos of myself, not just from the night before, but from weeks earlier in Portland. They had been stalking me long before I ever reached Mendocino. I needed to escape immediately, but Marcus blocked the doorway, his tall frame filling the space. "What do you think of Eliza's work, Leaf? She's been so looking forward to adding you to her collection." The other guests had disappeared, and I could hear the heavy cellar door closing upstairs. Eliza appeared behind Marcus, holding something in her gloved hands. "Most subjects don't appreciate the artistic process," she said, her voice eerily calm. "But I think you might be different, Leaf. You understand the power of capturing a moment, freezing time." She stepped forward, revealing a syringe filled with amber liquid. "Don't worry, this first part won't hurt much." I reacted instinctively, grabbing a heavy pottery bowl and hurling it at Marcus's head. The impact knocked him sideways, giving me just enough room to shove past. Eliza lunged for me, the needle grazing my arm as I twisted away. I sprinted for the stairs, taking them 2 at a time, the sound of pursuit close behind. The house seemed different now, the layout confusing, doors where there hadn't been doors before. I could hear Eliza laughing somewhere behind me, a sound so disturbing it propelled me forward with renewed terror. I burst through what I thought was the front door, only to find myself in a small courtyard surrounded by high stone walls. Moonlight revealed a garden of horrifying sculptures, human figures frozen in positions of agony, their faces contorted in silent screams. I realized with growing horror that these weren't sculptures at all, but actual bodies, somehow preserved, their skin bearing the same glazed finish as Eliza's pottery. My photographers, I couldn't help but notice the artistic arrangement, a macabre installation capturing the ultimate moment of human suffering. There was no time to process this nightmare. I could hear Eliza and Marcus inside the house, calling my name in sing-song voices like parents looking for a child playing hide-and-seek. I spotted a wooden gate on the far side of the courtyard and ran for it, my lungs burning, adrenaline masking the pain where the needle had scratched my arm. The gate led to a narrow path that wound down toward the cliffs. Behind me, the door to the courtyard burst open, and Eliza's voice rang out, no longer pleasant but filled with rage. "You're only making this more difficult, Leaf. The more you struggle, the more beautiful your final piece will be." The path was treacherous in the darkness, loose rocks sliding beneath my feet, threatening to send me plummeting over the cliff's edge. I could hear them behind me, Marcus's heavy footsteps and Eliza's lighter ones, moving with the confidence of those who knew this terrain intimately. My van was parked nearly a mile away, and my phone had no signal. My only hope was to reach the main road and flag down a passing car, if any came by at this late hour. The narrow path suddenly forked, one branch continuing along the cliff edge, the other descending steeply toward what appeared to be a small beach. I chose the beach route, hoping the darkness would provide cover. The descent was harrowing, more a controlled fall than a climb. Halfway down, my foot slipped, and I tumbled the remaining distance, landing hard on the sand below. Pain shot through my ankle, but I forced myself to keep moving, dragging my injured leg behind me. The beach was narrow, hemmed in by the cliff on one side and the crashing waves on the other. In the moonlight, I could make out a series of dark openings along the cliff face, sea caves carved by centuries of relentless tides. I limped toward the nearest one, desperate for any hiding place. The cave mouth was barely visible, a slightly darker shadow against the black cliff. I squeezed inside just as flashlight beams swept the beach where I had been moments before. The cave extended deeper than I had expected, the sound of the ocean fading as I moved further in. My eyes gradually adjusted to the darkness, revealing an unthinkable scene. The cave walls were lined with niches, each containing a ceramic vessel. The vessels were human-sized urns, their surfaces decorated with intricate patterns of suffering faces. Some were sealed completely. Others had small openings near the top. From one of these came a faint whimpering sound that turned my blood to ice. "Hello," I whispered, approaching the urn cautiously. The whimpering stopped, replaced by a desperate whisper. "Help me, please." The voice was weak, barely audible. I peered through the opening, using my phone's flashlight. Inside was a young woman, her body contorted to fit the confined space. Her skin had been partially glazed, the ceramic process already begun on her lower extremities. Her terrified eyes met mine. "I've been here for days," she rasped. "There are others, some still alive." Before I could respond, a light appeared at the cave entrance. "We have a studio right here on the beach. Did you know that, Leaf?" Eliza's voice echoed off the stone walls. "The sea caves provide the perfect temperature and humidity for our work. So convenient when materials wash up on our doorstep, like you." I heard Marcus laugh, the sound bouncing grotesquely around the cave. I retreated deeper, searching desperately for another exit, the trapped woman's pleas growing fainter behind me. The cave narrowed to a tight passage, forcing me to crawl. My injured ankle throbbed with each movement, but the voices behind me drove me forward. The passage opened suddenly into a larger chamber illuminated by an eerie blue glow. Phosphorescent algae covered the walls, providing just enough light to reveal the chamber's contents. A fully equipped workshop with kilns, pottery wheels, and tables covered with surgical instruments. The centerpiece was a large vat filled with cloudy liquid that gave off a chemical smell I recognized from Eliza's studio. "It's a special glaze," Eliza said, suddenly behind me. I hadn't heard her approach over the sound of my own panicked breathing. "Our own formula. It preserves the subject while allowing for perfect positioning. The transformation is quite beautiful to witness." She stepped into the blue light, holding not a syringe this time, but a small revolver. "Marcus prefers the knife. He's old-fashioned that way, but I find this more efficient for the initial stages." I lunged sideways as Eliza fired, the bullet grazing my shoulder instead of hitting my chest. The pain was immediate and searing, but survival instinct kept me moving. I knocked over a table of equipment, sending ceramic tools and scalpels clattering across the stone floor. Eliza cursed as she tried to step over the debris, giving me precious seconds to scan the chamber for any escape route. There, at the far end, another narrow opening, possibly leading to another section of the cave system. Marcus appeared at the main entrance, blocking my path back to the beach. He held a curved blade that gleamed blue in the phosphorescent light. "You're making a mess of Eliza's workshop," he said, his voice eerily calm. "She hates when the process is interrupted. The glaze sets improperly." He moved toward me with predatory grace, each step carefully placed. "The couple before you tried to escape too. Their piece is flawed. You can see the terror frozen unevenly in their expressions." I backed toward the secondary passage, my hand closing around a heavy ceramic tool, a rolling pin used for clay. "How many?" I demanded, playing for time. "How many people have you turned into your sick art?" Eliza laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Art requires sacrifice, Leaf. You should understand that better than most. 27 pieces in our permanent collection, each one telling a unique story of transformation. She raised the gun again. Yours will be displayed prominently. The traveling photographer who captured so much beauty, now becoming beauty himself. I threw the rolling pin at Eliza's head and dove for the narrow passage as another bullet ricocheted off the stone wall. The new tunnel was tight, forcing me to crawl despite my injuries. Blood from my shoulder wound made my hands slippery on the rough stone. Behind me, I could hear Marcus trying to follow, his larger frame making progress difficult. "You're only delaying the inevitable," his voice echoed behind me. "These caves all connect. There's no way out except past us." The tunnel began to slope upward, giving me hope that it might lead to the cliff top. My injured ankle screamed in protest with each movement, and my wounded shoulder left a trail of blood that would make me easy to track. The passageway widened slightly, allowing me to stand in a hunched position. I could feel a faint breeze. There was an opening somewhere ahead. I moved faster, ignoring the pain, driven by the desperate need to escape this nightmare. The passage ended abruptly at a vertical shaft with crude handholds carved into the rock. Moonlight filtered down from above. I was looking at a potential escape route to the cliff top. I began to climb, my injured body protesting with each movement. The handholds were slick with sea spray, making the ascent treacherous. I had climbed perhaps 15 feet when I heard Marcus enter the chamber below. "I see you found the service in trance," he called up to me, his voice echoing in the confined space. "Eliza and I use it to bring supplies in. Much easier than carrying things down the cliff path." I climbed faster, knowing he would follow. The shaft seemed endless, the opening above growing tantalizingly closer with each painful handhold. My fingers were bloody from gripping the rough stone, my injured shoulder threatening to give out entirely. I could hear Marcus below me, his breathing heavy as he began his own ascent. Just as my hand reached the edge of the opening, I felt something grab my injured ankle. I looked down to see Marcus just a few feet below, his face twisted in an expression of manic determination. "Let me help you with the final phase of your transformation," he said, pulling a small blade from his pocket while maintaining his grip on my ankle. I kicked frantically with my free leg, connecting with his shoulder. He grunted but didn't let go. In desperation, I grabbed a loose stone from the shaft wall and brought it down hard on his hand. He howled in pain, releasing my ankle momentarily, just long enough for me to pull myself up and out of the shaft onto solid ground. The cliff top was bathed in moonlight, the Victorian house visible in the distance. I staggered to my feet, knowing Marcus would be right behind me. My van was somewhere on the other side of that house, but I couldn't risk going near it. Instead, I limped toward the main road, each step sending waves of agony through my injured ankle. Behind me, I heard Marcus emerge from the shaft, shouting for Eliza. I ducked behind a large rock formation, trying to control my ragged breathing as they converged on the cliff top. I could see headlights on the coastal highway below, a passing car, potential salvation. I needed to reach that road. Moving from shadow to shadow, I made my way down the gentle slope toward the highway. I had almost reached it when I heard Eliza's voice directly behind me. "The night air will affect the setting process. We should really get you inside." I turned to find her standing just feet away, her gun pointed at my chest. Marcus emerged from the darkness to my right, effectively trapping me between them and the steep drop to the highway below. In that moment, time seemed to slow. I saw the headlights of another vehicle approaching on the highway, a large truck moving at high speed. Without hesitation, I threw myself over the edge of the embankment, rolling and sliding down the steep slope as bullets kicked up dirt around me. I hit the asphalt hard, directly in the truck's path. Its horn blared as the driver slammed on the brakes, tires screeching against the pavement. The massive vehicle jackknifed, its trailer swinging around violently before coming to a stop mere feet from where I lay. The truck driver, a burly man named Ray, was convinced I was severely intoxicated or mentally disturbed. How else to explain a bloodied man suddenly appearing on a deserted highway at 2 a.m.? He didn't believe my incoherent story about killer artists and human pottery, but agreed to drive me to the nearest hospital in Fort Bragg. As we pulled away, I looked back to see Eliza and Marcus standing at the top of the embankment, watching the truck disappear into the night. Eliza raised her hand in a casual wave, as if saying, "Until next time." The hospital staff attributed my wild story to shock and blood loss. The police were slightly more receptive, especially when I described the cave system in detail, but without concrete evidence, they were hesitant to investigate the respected artists. By the time a half-hearted search was conducted 3 days later, the cave workshop had been cleared out, the trapped victims moved elsewhere. My van had disappeared from Eliza's property, presumably driven off a cliff or hidden away as evidence. I never returned to Mendocino. I abandoned Vanlife altogether, moving into a small apartment in Seattle where I take medication for PTSD and rarely go out after dark. Sometimes I see pottery in store windows that makes my heart stop. Pieces with subtly incorporated human elements that most shoppers wouldn't notice. I've reported these sightings to the police, but they've dismissed them as paranoid delusions. What keeps me awake most nights isn't the memory of my own narrow escape, but the knowledge that somewhere along the California coast, Eliza and Marcus are still working, still creating their monstrous art, still waiting for unwary travelers to park in the wrong secluded spot. My name is Vanessa Blackwood, and I'm 29 years old. I live in Austin, Texas, where I work as a freelance software developer. 6 months ago, I made the decision that changed and nearly ended my life. I sold most of my possessions, purchased a 2015 Ram ProMaster, and spent weeks converting it into a mobile living space complete with solar panels, a compact workspace, and all the comforts a minimalist nomad could need. The tech industry had gone remote, and I was determined to take full advantage of it. My plan was to travel the country, working from picturesque locations while building my portfolio of nature photography, a hobby I hoped might eventually become a second income stream. That dream led me to the ancient redwood forests of Humboldt County, California. The drive up the California coast had been everything I'd imagined: breathtaking ocean views, charming small towns, and an intoxicating sense of freedom. I'd stayed at established campgrounds for most of the journey, but as I ventured deeper into Humboldt County, I became more comfortable with boondocking, parking overnight in secluded, often unofficial spots. The Allvan Camp app on my phone showed several highly rated free camping locations near the Avenue of the Giants, a scenic highway that winds through Humboldt Redwood State Park. One spot in particular caught my attention, a secluded turnout near a place called Founders Grove, with comments describing it as magical and spiritually rejuvenating. I arrived at the location just before sunset, following a narrow dirt road that branched off from the main highway. Massive redwoods towered overhead, creating a natural cathedral that filtered the fading sunlight into ethereal beams. The spot was even more perfect than the app had indicated, a small clearing surrounded by ancient trees, with enough space for my van to park level. A primitive fire ring made of stones suggested others had enjoyed this spot before me, though I was thankfully alone at the moment. The silence was profound, broken only by the occasional call of a distant bird or the gentle creaking of the massive trees in the light breeze. After setting up my portable camping chair and preparing a simple dinner, I noticed a weathered wooden sign nearly hidden among the ferns at the edge of the clearing. Whisper Trail, 1.2 miles, it read, with an arrow pointing toward what appeared to be a narrow path disappearing into the dense forest. According to the maps I'd studied, this wasn't an official trail, likely just a local secret path. I made a mental note to explore it the following morning, the perfect opportunity for photographing the redwoods in the soft morning light. As darkness fell, I retreated to my van, locking the doors out of habit rather than any sense of danger. I spent a few hours editing photos and responding to client emails before the spotty cell service finally gave out completely. With no internet to distract me, I decided to turn in early, falling asleep to the soothing sounds of the forest and the occasional patter of light rain on my van's roof. I slept deeply until around 3 a.m., when I was jolted awake by what sounded like singing, distant, ethereal voices weaving through the trees, the melody unlike anything I'd ever heard before. Curious and slightly unnerved, I peered through my blackout curtains. The forest was enveloped in dense fog, giving the towering redwoods a ghostly appearance in the faint moonlight. The singing continued, seeming to come from the direction of the Whisper Trail. I debated whether to investigate, the rational part of my brain arguing that wandering into an unfamiliar forest at night was foolish, while my curiosity insisted this was exactly the kind of authentic experience I'd hit the road to find. Curiosity won. I pulled on hiking boots and a rain jacket, grabbed my camera and flashlight, and quietly exited the van. The air outside was cool and heavy with moisture, the fog swirling around my ankles as I moved toward the trailhead. The singing grew more distinct as I approached, multiple voices in perfect harmony, the words indecipherable but somehow familiar. My flashlight beam barely penetrated the dense fog, creating an eerie bubble of visibility around me as I found the trail and began to follow it. The path was narrow but well-trodden, winding between massive redwood trunks and through thickets of sword ferns that brushed against my legs. I'd walked for perhaps 10 minutes when the singing abruptly stopped, leaving an unsettling silence in its wake. I froze, suddenly aware of how foolish I'd been to venture out alone. As I stood there, debating whether to continue or turn back, I heard a twig snap somewhere to my right. My flashlight beam darted in that direction, briefly illuminating a figure standing between two redwoods, a tall, thin silhouette that disappeared the instant my light found it. "Hello," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't mean to intrude. I just heard singing and wanted to see what was happening." No response came, but I could feel eyes watching me from the darkness. Just as I decided to return to the safety of my van, a man stepped onto the trail ahead of me. He was strikingly handsome, with sharp cheekbones and eyes so dark they seemed to absorb my flashlight beam. He wore what appeared to be some kind of park ranger uniform, though something about it seemed off, too formal, too pristine for the middle of the night in a foggy forest. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said, his voice unexpectedly gentle. "The forest can be dangerous after dark." He introduced himself as Ranger Thorn and explained that they were conducting a night survey of owl populations, which sometimes involved using vocal calls that might sound strange to visitors. "Let me escort you back to your campsite," he offered, gesturing toward the way I'd come. These woods have a way of confusing even experienced hikers. Relief washed over me as I accepted his offer, unaware that I was walking alongside the person who would soon become my living nightmare. Ranger Thorn led me back to my van with practiced ease, navigating the foggy trail without needing a flashlight. I found his presence both reassuring and slightly unsettling. His movements were too fluid, too silent for someone of his size. "You chose an interesting spot to camp," he remarked as we neared the clearing. "Not many visitors find this place anymore." When I mentioned the all-van camp app, a brief frown crossed his face before he quickly masked it with a smile. Technology makes it hard to keep any place truly wild these days. At my van, he offered a formal tip of his hat before melting back into the fog with a final warning. "Stay in your vehicle until morning. The forest doesn't always welcome those who wander." I slept fitfully for the remainder of the night, waking frequently to unusual sounds, whispers that seemed to circle my van, light scratching against the metal exterior, and once, what sounded like someone softly calling my name. By dawn, I was exhausted but eager to begin my day. The fog had lifted, revealing a glorious morning with sunlight streaming through the redwood canopy. As I prepared breakfast on my portable stove, a bright yellow Volkswagen bus pulled into the clearing, parking about 20 feet from my van. A young couple emerged, Kai and Willow, fellow Vanlifers from Oregon who had been traveling the coast for the past month. Kai was tall and lanky with sun-bleached dreadlocks, while Willow had a pixie haircut dyed vibrant purple. They were friendly and immediately offered to share their fair trade coffee. As we chatted, I mentioned my strange nocturnal encounter with Ranger Thorn and the mysterious singing. Their reaction was immediate and disturbing, exchanged glances filled with concern, followed by nervous laughter. "There aren't any night surveys happening in this area," Kai said carefully. "We checked with the visitor center yesterday, and the rangers don't patrol this spot. It's technically outside park boundaries." Willow touched my arm gently. Did this ranger look sort of old-fashioned? Like his uniform wasn't quite right. When I nodded, she shivered visibly. "We've heard stories about him from other campers up and down this road. They say he appears to people who camp alone." I tried to dismiss their warnings as campfire tales meant to scare tourists, but the earnestness in their eyes made that difficult. Willow retrieved a small journal from their van, and showed me entries from other travelers describing encounters with a ranger thorn dating back several years. Most disturbingly, several people who had reported meeting him had subsequently disappeared, their vehicles found abandoned at various camping spots along the Avenue of the Giants. "We're heading into Garberville for supplies," Kai offered. "You should come with us, maybe find a different spot for tonight." I declined, partly out of stubborn pride and partly because this location was perfect for the forest photography I had planned. Besides, I reasoned, whatever or whoever I had encountered last night hadn't harmed me. After Kai and Willow departed, promising to return before sunset, I packed my camera gear and some water, determined to explore the Whisper Trail properly in daylight. The path was even more beautiful by day, sunlight filtering through the towering redwoods, illuminating carpets of clover and fern below. I photographed fascinating fungal growths on fallen logs, delicate spider webs glistening with dew, and the textured bark of trees that had stood for centuries before I was born. The forest felt ancient and watchful, but not threatening. I had nearly reached what my phone's GPS suggested was the end of the trail when I spotted something that made me freeze. A small wooden structure, almost like a primitive shrine, nestled at the base of a particularly massive redwood. The shrine was weathered but clearly maintained, adorned with intricate carvings of faces that seemed to emerge from the wood grain itself. Before it lay fresh offerings, wildflowers, small stones arranged in patterns, and most disturbing, several Polaroid photographs of people standing beside vans and RVs, their faces circled in red ink. With trembling fingers, I sorted through the photos, a sense of dread building as I recognized the camping spot where my van was currently parked. Each photo showed a different person, different vehicle, but identical location. On the back of each image was a date and a single word, harvested. My hand went to my mouth to stifle a gasp when I found a photo of Kai and Willow beside their yellow VW bus, dated yesterday, their faces circled in the same red ink, the word pending written on the back. Even more horrifying was the final photo in the stack. Me, standing outside my van just that morning, preparing breakfast. I hadn't noticed anyone watching me, let alone taking photographs. The back of my photo was blank, awaiting its designation of either pending or harvested. I scrambled to my feet, shoving the photos into my pocket, suddenly desperate to return to my van and leave this place immediately. The journey back seemed longer somehow, the trail narrower, the shadows deeper despite the midday sun. Multiple times I felt certain I was being watched, spinning around to find nothing but ancient trees and rustling ferns. When I finally emerged at the clearing, my heart sank. My van was exactly where I'd left it, but Kai and Willow's Volkswagen had returned. It sat silent and empty, the doors hanging open as if they had departed in a hurry. I approached cautiously, calling their names. The interior of their van was in disarray, belongings scattered as though there had been a struggle. On the driver's seat lay Willow's journal, open to a fresh entry that consisted of a single sentence: "He's not a ranger." My hands shook as I started my van, desperate to leave before whatever had happened to Kai and Willow could happen to me. The engine roared to life, but as I shifted into reverse, it suddenly sputtered and died. I tried again with the same result. The engine would start, but die the moment I attempted to move. Fighting rising panic, I popped the hood to investigate, though my mechanical knowledge was limited at best. What I found made no sense. Dozens of tiny carved wooden figures had been placed throughout the engine compartment, wedged between components, balanced on hoses and wires. Each figure represented a human form in various poses of distress, their faces contorted in expressions of terror. The sight of those twisted wooden figures nestled throughout my engine compartment sent a wave of nausea through me. Each one had been meticulously carved with disturbing attention to detail, tiny limbs positioned at unnatural angles, mouths open in silent screams. I began removing them frantically, tossing them to the ground, when I noticed something even more unsettling: small red stains on several of the figures, the color still wet to the touch. I wiped my fingers on my jeans, trying not to think about what might have produced those stains, focusing instead on clearing every last figure from my engine. With shaking hands, I tried the ignition again. The engine caught, rumbled, and this time continued running when I shifted into reverse. Relief flooded through me, quickly replaced by a new dilemma. I couldn't simply drive away and leave Kai and Willow, who were clearly in danger if not already harmed. I pulled my van around to face the forest road, leaving it running while I quickly gathered my belongings from the campsite. That's when I noticed something I had missed before: a narrow pathway beaten into the ferns behind where the Volkswagen had been parked, leading deeper into the forest away from the main trail. Fresh drag marks scarred the earth, alongside what appeared to be footprints. Many footprints, suggesting multiple people had recently traveled this route. Common sense urged me to drive away, to find help in the nearest town, but the thought of Kai and Willow potentially suffering while I fled was unbearable. I made a compromise with my fear. I would follow the path just far enough to determine if they were nearby, then return to my van and seek proper help. I grabbed my phone, still no signal, a small canister of bear spray, and my largest flashlight, which could double as a weapon if necessary. The new path was crude but clearly used frequently, winding through dense underbrush and between closely growing redwoods, occasionally marked with small carved symbols that resembled the faces on the shrine I had discovered earlier. The path led me to a steep ravine, descending sharply into a shadowy valley that the midday sun barely penetrated. As I picked my way carefully down the slippery slope, I began to hear voices. Not the ethereal singing from the night before, but ordinary human conversation punctuated by occasional laughter. The voices carried clearly in the still forest air, allowing me to make out fragments of discussion about preparation, the ceremony, and worthy vessels. I crouched behind a massive fallen redwood, peering over it to see a sight that defied rational explanation. In a natural clearing below stood a collection of rough wooden structures, cabins and workshops arranged in a rough semicircle around a central space dominated by an enormous redwood stump. The stump had been carved into an altar of sorts, its surface stained dark with what I desperately hoped was not blood. Around this altar moved about a dozen people dressed in clothing that appeared strangely anachronistic. Men in canvas work clothes reminiscent of early logging days. Women in long dresses with high collars and aprons. They were going about tasks with practiced efficiency, preparing food, carving wood, and most disturbingly, constructing what appeared to be a large wicker structure in the rough shape of a human form. I scanned the clearing desperately for any sign of Kai and Willow, finally spotting them in one of the open-sided structures. They sat unnaturally still on rough wooden benches, their expressions vacant, eyes fixed on something I couldn't see from my position. They showed no signs of physical restraint, yet made no attempt to flee despite being apparently unguarded. As I watched, a tall figure emerged from the largest cabin, a man I recognized immediately as Ranger Thorn, though he had abandoned his ranger disguise for clothing similar to the others. He carried himself with an air of authority, the others deferring to him as he passed, and I realized with a chill that I was witnessing some kind of isolated community, cut off from the modern world, surviving in secret within the redwood forest. Thorn approached Kai and Willow, speaking to them in low tones I couldn't distinguish. Whatever he said produced no reaction from either of them. They remained seated, staring blankly ahead as if in a trance. He placed his hands on their heads in what appeared to be a blessing or ritual gesture, then turned to address the assembled community. "The vessels are prepared," he announced, his voice carrying clearly to my hiding place. "Tonight, we welcome 2 more ancients to dwell among us. Their vehicles have been cleansed and will be moved at nightfall." A murmur of approval ran through the group, several making reverent gestures toward the surrounding redwoods. With growing horror, I began to understand. These people somehow believed they were, what? Transferring something into human vessels. The implications were too disturbing to fully comprehend. I needed to escape and find help immediately, but as I began to back away from my observation point, my foot dislodged a small cascade of pebbles that clattered down the slope. The sound, though small, carried in the quiet forest. Several heads turned in my direction, including Thorn's. I froze, hoping the dense undergrowth concealed me, but Thorn's dark eyes seemed to lock directly onto my hiding place. He smiled, a terrifying expression devoid of warmth, and made a small gesture to 2 of the men standing nearby. Without a word, they began moving toward the base of the ravine where I was hidden, their movements unhurried but purposeful, as if the outcome was already predetermined. I abandoned any pretense of stealth and scrambled up the steep slope, clawing at roots and rocks to propel myself faster. Behind me, I could hear my pursuers beginning the climb, still methodical, still terrifyingly unhurried. They knew these woods intimately, and worse, they knew where my van was parked. Even if I reached it before them, the narrow forest road offered only one way out, easily blocked or ambushed. My mind raced through alternatives as I crested the ravine. I could try to lose them in the forest, perhaps circle back to the main highway, but night would eventually fall, and the thought of being in these woods after dark with those people hunting me was unbearable. I crashed through the undergrowth, abandoning the path in favor of a direct route back to my van. Branches whipped at my face and arms, leaving stinging welts, but fear drove me forward. I could hear my pursuers behind me, their progress more measured but relentless. They called to each other occasionally, coordinating their movements with disturbing precision, hurting me like experienced hunters. The forest that had seemed so beautiful hours before now felt oppressive and hostile. The massive redwoods no longer inspiring awe but terror, their enormous trunks limiting visibility and providing countless hiding places for those who knew the terrain. When I finally burst into the clearing where I'd camped, I was momentarily disoriented. My van was gone. In its place sat Kai and Willow's yellow Volkswagen bus, now parked at a different angle than before. Fighting panic, I scanned the clearing and spotted my van partially hidden among the trees on the opposite side, as if someone had attempted to conceal it. I sprinted toward it, fumbling for my keys, praying that whatever had been done to disable it earlier had not been repeated. Behind me, I could hear my pursuers emerging from the forest, their voices raised in what sounded almost like a chant. The van's door was unlocked. I hadn't locked it in my haste to investigate the path, and I threw myself inside, slamming and locking the door behind me. The key turned in the ignition and the engine roared to life immediately, but as I shifted into drive, something heavy struck the roof of the van. Fingers appeared at the edges of my driver's side window, impossibly long fingers with blackened nails that scraped against the glass. I gunned the engine, and the van lurched forward, throwing off whatever had climbed onto the roof. In my side mirror, I caught a glimpse of a figure rolling on the ground. Not one of the men who had pursued me from the ravine, but something else entirely, its proportions wrong, its movements unnaturally fluid. The narrow forest road twisted sharply about a quarter-mile from the clearing, and as I rounded the bend, I saw that my escape route was indeed blocked. A massive redwood had fallen across the road, too recently for the fresh splinters and sap still visible on the raw wood. This was no natural fall. The tree had been deliberately dropped to prevent my escape. I slammed on the brakes, mind racing through options. The van was high clearance, but not a true off-road vehicle. Trying to circumvent the blockage through the dense forest would likely result in getting stuck. Going back meant facing whatever awaited me in the clearing. A third option presented itself as I noticed a narrow fire road branching off about 50 yards back, partially hidden by undergrowth. I reversed carefully, then turned onto this new path, hoping it would eventually connect to another exit route. The fire road was rough, barely maintained, with low branches scraping the roof of my van and potholes that threatened to bottom out my suspension. I pushed on regardless, checking my mirrors constantly for signs of pursuit. The road wound deeper into the forest, the massive redwoods giving way to younger, densely packed trees that created a claustrophobic tunnel effect around the narrow track. After about 2 miles of increasingly difficult terrain, the fire road emerged onto what appeared to be an old logging camp, a large clearing containing the rusted remains of equipment and several dilapidated wooden structures. I stopped to consult my offline maps, searching for any indication of where this road might lead. According to the map, I had somehow been driving parallel to the main highway, separated from it by less than a mile of dense forest. If I could find a way through those trees, I could reach the highway in safety. As I studied the map, movement caught my eye, a figure emerging from one of the abandoned buildings, then another and another. These weren't members of the community I had observed earlier. They moved differently, more fluidly, almost gliding across the uneven ground. As they approached my van, I could see that they wore clothes similar to those of the community members, but ancient and rotting, hanging from emaciated frames. Their faces were partially concealed by wide-brimmed hats pulled low, But what I could see beneath those brims turned my blood to ice. Skin that resembled redwood bark more than human flesh. Eyes that reflected light like a nocturnal animal's. I threw the van into reverse, but my escape was cut short by the sound of splintering wood as my rear wheels broke through rotted planks concealing a pit beneath. The van tilted backward, its rear wheels spinning uselessly in open air as I frantically tried to drive forward. The engine roared, but the wheels couldn't gain enough traction to pull free of the trap. The figures continued their approach, unhurried, now joined by several more emerging from the forest edge. Through my panic, I realized that these must be the ancients the community worshipped, humans somehow transformed into something else, something that existed in a disturbing symbiosis with the redwood forest itself. Enkai and Willow were being prepared to join their ranks. With the van immobilized, I grabbed my emergency backpack containing water, energy bars, and basic survival equipment. The driver's side faced away from the approaching figures, giving me a slim chance to escape undetected if I could make it into the forest. I eased the door open slowly, wincing at every creak of the hinges. The ground was about 4 feet below, requiring a careful drop that I managed silently. Crouching behind the van, I watched as the bark-skinned figures reached the front of my vehicle, their movements jerky yet fluid, like trees swaying in strong wind. One placed a hand on the hood, long fingers spreading across the metal, leaving behind a residue that resembled sap. I used their focus on the van as an opportunity to slip away, staying low and moving from one piece of abandoned equipment to another until I reached the tree line. Only then did I risk looking back. The figures had surrounded my van, some peering in the windows while others seemed to be communicating in a language that sounded like creaking wood and rustling leaves. One turned suddenly in my direction, its face splitting in what might have been a smile, revealing teeth stained dark as the heartwood of an ancient redwood. I didn't wait to see more, plunging into the forest and running blindly away from the logging camp. My flight through the forest was a nightmare of disorientation and terror. I tried to maintain a straight line toward where I believed the highway should be, but the dense trees and uneven terrain forced me to constantly adjust my course. Behind me, I could hear pursuit, not the heavy footfalls of normal humans, but a strange rustling and creaking that seemed to come from all directions at once. Twice I hid behind massive trunks as bark-skinned figures glided past, their movements so fluid they seemed almost to phase through the underbrush rather than push it aside. They communicated in that terrible language of creaks and rustles, coordinating their search with frightening efficiency. The forest grew darker as afternoon faded toward evening, each shadow potentially concealing one of my pursuers. My lungs burned with exertion, and scratches from countless branches stung my face and arms. According to my phone's GPS, I was still heading in the right direction toward the highway, but the dense redwood forest made it impossible to see more than a few dozen yards in any direction. Exhaustion began to take its toll. My pace slowed, my reactions dulled by fear and fatigue. During one desperate sprint between hiding spots, my foot caught on an exposed root, sending me tumbling down a steep, fern-covered slope. The fall knocked the wind from my lungs and sent pain shooting through my ankle. I lay there gasping, trying to silence my ragged breathing as I heard the creaking movements of my pursuers passing overhead, unaware of my accidental descent. When I tried to stand, my injured ankle nearly buckled beneath me. I would have to continue at a much slower pace, using fallen branches as makeshift crutches. The slope had carried me into a darkened hollow where the redwoods grew especially dense, their massive trunks creating a cathedral-like space with a floor of soft needles and moss. Despite my terror, I couldn't help but notice the eerie beauty of this place. Shafts of fading sunlight penetrating the canopy like spotlights, illuminating swirling motes of dust and pollen. As I gathered fallen branches to serve as walking sticks, my hand brushed against something smooth and unnatural among the forest debris. Pushing aside layers of needles and leaves revealed a driver's license belonging to a woman named Sarah Larson, dated 3 years earlier. Nearby lay a corroded watch, a tarnished wedding ring, and fragments of what might once have been camping equipment. With growing horror, I realized I had stumbled upon a graveyard of sorts, not of bodies, but of identities, the last remaining physical evidence of people who had been harvested and transformed into the bark-skinned ancients who now hunted me through the forest. A sudden crack of breaking branches nearby sent me scrambling for cover behind the massive root system of a fallen redwood. From my hiding place, I watched as one of the bark-skinned figures entered the hollow, moving with that same disturbing fluidity that suggested joints and limbs not quite human anymore. It paused, head tilting as if sensing something amiss, then began methodically searching the area. I held my breath, pressing myself deeper into the shadows of the roots, praying it wouldn't notice the freshly disturbed leaves where I had discovered Sarah Larson's belongings. My hiding place proved inadequate. The creature's head snapped in my direction, those reflective eyes locking onto my position with predatory certainty. It made a sound, a horrible creaking groan that rose in pitch until it became a keening wail that echoed through the forest. Answering calls sounded from multiple directions, growing closer with terrifying speed. Abandoning stealth, I burst from my hiding place, hobbling as fast as my injured ankle would allow, heading in what I hoped was still the direction of the highway. The creature followed, its movements accelerating from an awkward shamble to a fluid, bounding gait that closed the distance between us with each leap. Just as I felt the brush of those elongated fingers against my back, I broke through a final stand of trees and found myself facing an unexpected salvation. The highway, much closer than my GPS had indicated. A semi-truck approached from the south, its headlights cutting through the gathering dusk. I stumbled onto the asphalt, waving my arms frantically, praying the driver would see me before either hitting me or passing by. The truck's brakes hissed as the driver spotted me, the massive vehicle slowing and pulling onto the shoulder about 50 yards ahead. I turned to look back at the forest edge, expecting to see my pursuers emerging from the trees, but the treeline remained still and undisturbed, as if the creatures knew better than to reveal themselves on the open highway. The truck driver, a middle-aged woman named Carol with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, was understandably skeptical of my incoherent story about occult and bark-skinned monsters in the redwood forest. She attributed my scratched face, sprained ankle, and wild-eyed panic to a hiking accident and possible concussion, but she agreed to drive me to the nearest town with a police station. As we pulled away, I watched the dark line of trees recede in the side mirror, and for just a moment, I thought I saw multiple figures emerge briefly from the forest edge, some in the anachronistic clothing of the community, others with the distinctive silhouettes of the ancients, all standing in perfect stillness, watching the truck depart. The police in Garberville were equally skeptical of my tale, especially when I couldn't provide a precise location for the community or the logging camp where I'd abandoned my van. The most they would do was take a report about Kai and Willow as potentially missing persons, though even that was filed with obvious reluctance. My description of the community members produced no recognition, and my attempt to explain the ancients earned me a recommendation to visit the local hospital for a psychological evaluation. When I insisted on showing them the Polaroid photographs I'd taken from the shrine as evidence, I discovered they were gone from my pocket. Whether lost during my flight through the forest or taken by the creatures during my fall, I couldn't know. I spent that night in a cheap motel, doors and windows locked and barricaded with furniture. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by nightmares of bark-skinned figures and Kai and Willow's vacant eyes. In the morning, I hired a local mechanic to drive me back to the Avenue of the Giants so I could attempt to locate my van, but nothing looked familiar in daylight. The small dirt road where I'd camped seemed to have vanished entirely, the forest presenting only unbroken walls of redwoods alongside the highway. The mechanic grew increasingly impatient as we drove up and down the same stretch of road repeatedly, finally suggesting that I might have been turned around due to my accident and had actually camped somewhere else entirely. 3 days later, I boarded a bus to San Francisco, abandoning my search for the van and the nightmare community hidden among the redwoods. Insurance eventually paid for this stolen vehicle, and I used the money to return to Austin, where I now live in a small apartment with triple locks on the doors. I've tried to convince myself that what happened in the redwood forest was some kind of elaborate hallucination caused by a concussion or perhaps toxic exposure to something in the forest. But some nights, I wake to the sound of creaking wood and rustling leaves outside my third-floor window, and I know with terrible certainty that the ancients haven't forgotten me. The news reports started 6 months after my escape. 3 Vanlifers missing in Humboldt County. Their vehicles found abandoned near the Avenue of the Giants. The authorities blamed mountain lions or drug-related violence, but I recognized the truth. Sometimes I receive strange packages with no return address, small wooden figures with bark-like skin and elongated limbs, accompanied by Polaroid photographs of my apartment building taken from positions that would require the photographer to be perched in trees that don't exist. The most recent package contained a ranger badge with the name Thorn engraved on it, and a note written in what appeared to be reddish-brown sap. The forest remembers. The forest waits. The forest needs new vessels. I've moved 3 times since then, but the packages always find me. I know now that one day, I'll look out my window and see them waiting. The community and their ancient masters, and on that day, I'll join Kai and Willow among the towering redwoods. My humanity slowly replaced by something ancient and terrible that has learned to wear human skin. Rain slaps the windshield of my van, blurring the redwood silhouettes outside. I'm parked on a gravel pullout off Highway 101, just outside Arcata, Northern California. My name's Elias Varnell. I'm 29 years old, and I live in Redding, a few hours south. Been living the van life for 2 years, chasing freedom in my converted Sprinter. Tonight, I'm bone-tired after driving through fog so thick it felt like wading through soup. This spot seemed quiet, tucked between towering trees, but the darkness feels heavy, like it's watching me. My phone's got no signal, typical for these remote stretches. I lock the doors, double-check the windows, and try to shake the uneasy itch crawling up my spine. My van's my sanctuary, rigged with a fold-out bed, a tiny stove, and string lights for vibe. I've got my dog, a scruffy mutt named Juniper, curled up on the blanket. She's usually chill, but her ears keep twitching like she hears something I don't. I tell myself it's just the storm, branches scraping in the wind. I met a couple of other vanlifers earlier at a gas station in Eureka. Rhea, a chatty artist with purple hair, and her boyfriend Torin, a lanky guy who seemed more interested in his vape than conversation. They said they were crashing nearby, maybe at a campground. Nice folks, but I prefer my own space. I heat up some ramen on the stove, the steam fogging the windows. The rain's relentless, drumming on the roof like impatient fingers. I've parked in sketchy spots before, desert washes, city alleys. But something about this place feels off, like I've stumbled into somewhere I shouldn't be. I try to laugh it off. I mean, it's just a pullout, not a horror movie set. Juniper whines, staring at the back door. Relax, girl. I mutter, but my hand lingers on the knife I keep by the sink. Just in case. I've read about weirdos in these woods, but that's just campfire talk, right? The string lights flicker, and I curse the cheap wiring I never got around to fixing. I'm not a mechanic, just a guy who watched too many YouTube tutorials. Back in Redding, I was a barista, slinging overpriced lattes to hipsters. Vanlife was my escape from that grind, but it's not all Instagram sunsets. You learn to trust your gut when you're alone in the middle of nowhere. And right now, my gut's whispering that something's not right. I pull out my journal, scribbling to calm my nerves. The page fills with messy thoughts about the road, Rhea's weird laugh, and this creepy-ass forest. Juniper's still tense, her eyes locked on the door. I try to distract her with a treat, but she ignores it. First time she's ever done that. The rain slows to a drizzle, and the silence that follows feels louder than the storm. I'm not superstitious, but I grew up hearing stories about Northern California's dark side. Cults, disappearances, things that don't add up. I shake my head, telling myself I'm just tired. I climb into bed, pulling the curtains tight. The van's cozy, but it feels small tonight, like the walls are closing in. I think about Rhea and Torin again. They invited me to join them at their campsite, but I passed. I'm not big on groups, too much small talk. Still, I wonder if they're out there, safe in their van, or if they're feeling this same creepy vibe. I check my phone again, still no bars. It's just me, Juniper, and the forest. I turn off the lights, plunging the van into darkness. My eyes adjust, catching faint shapes through the window. Probably just trees, but they look like figures if I stare too long. I laugh nervously, trying to break the tension. Sleep's hard to come by. Every creak of the van makes me flinch. I tell myself it's the wind, or maybe a raccoon rummaging outside. But Juniper's low growl says otherwise. I sit up, heart thumping, and grab the knife. I'm probably overreacting, but I've learned to listen to my dog. She's smarter than me half the time. I peer through the curtain, seeing nothing but black. The air feels thick, like it's holding its breath. I don't know what's out there, but the horror of this place is starting to sink in. I try to focus on normal stuff, like the ramen I ate or the playlist I was blasting earlier. But my mind keeps drifting to worst-case scenarios. What if someone's out there, watching? I've heard of people messing with vanlifers, stealing gear, slashing tires. Or worse. I push the thought away, but it sticks like damp clothes. I lie back down, knife in hand, telling Juniper we're fine. She doesn't buy it. Neither do I. The night stretches on, and the scary quiet of the forest presses against the van. I'm about to drift off when Juniper barks, sharp, urgent. My eyes snap open, heart hammering. Something's out there, and it's not just the wind. The disturbing weight of the night feels alive now, like it's circling my van. I grip the knife tighter, waiting, listening, praying it's nothing. But deep down, I know better. Morning light filters through the van's curtains, but it's gray, muted by the fog clinging to the redwoods. I barely slept, my eyes gritty from staring at the ceiling, knife in hand. Juniper's calmer now, but she's still glued to my side, her nose twitching like she's sniffing for trouble. I check my phone, still no signal. The pullout off Highway 101 feels more isolated in daylight, the gravel slick with last night's rain. I step outside to stretch, but the air's damp and heavy, like it's carrying secrets. The forest around Arcata is gorgeous, sure, but there's something disturbing about how it swallows sound, leaving only an eerie hum. I pop the hood to check the van's battery. The flickering lights last night spooked me. I'm no gearhead, but I know a loose connection when I see one. I tighten a cable, cursing myself for not fixing this back in Reading. Vanlife's all about freedom, but it's also about dumb mistakes, like not checking your wiring before parking in the middle of nowhere. I slam the hood shut, glancing around. The trees feel too close, their branches like fingers brushing the van. I tell myself it's just paranoia, but the horror of last night lingers. Back inside, I brew coffee, the hiss of the stove grounding me. Juniper's eating her kibble, but she keeps pausing to stare at the door. I try to shake the creepy feeling by planning my day. I could head into Arcata, grab supplies, maybe find Rhea and Torin. Their campsite's probably nearby, and honestly, I wouldn't mind some human company after last night. But part of me wants to hit the road, leave this place behind. I flip a coin to decide. Heads, I stay. Tails, I go. It lands tails. I ignore it. Dumb, I know, but I'm stubborn. I dig through my map, circling spots in Arcata to check out. There's a diner I heard about, supposed to have killer pancakes. But as I'm folding the map, I notice something outside. A scrap of fabric caught on a bush near the pullout. It's purple, like Rhea's hair. My stomach twists. Could be nothing, just trash, but it feels like a sign. I grab my jacket and Juniper's leash, deciding to take a look. The fog's thicker now, curling around the trees like smoke. Every step feels like I'm trespassing. The fabric's a scarf, damp and torn. I don't know Rhea well, but she was wearing something like this at the gas station. I stuff it in my pocket, telling myself I'll ask her about it if I see her. Juniper's pulling at the leash, sniffing the ground like she's on a mission. We follow a faint trail into the woods, the gravel fading to dirt. I'm not a hiker, but I've watched enough true crime to know wandering alone is a bad idea. Still, I keep going, driven by this nagging, scary feeling that something's wrong. The trail leads to a clearing, maybe a quarter-mile from my van. There's a fire pit, charred and cold, and tire tracks in the mud. Could be Rhea and Torin's campsite, but it's deserted. No van, no tent, just a few crushed beer cans and a plastic fork half buried in the dirt. My heart's thumping now, the horror of the empty clearing sinking in. I call out, Rhea? Torin. My voice dies in the fog. Juniper growls, her hackles up, staring at the trees. I spin around, expecting, hell, I don't know what. I'm about to head back when I spot something else. A shoe, a single sneaker, caked in mud. It's Torin's size, maybe, but I can't be sure. My mind races. Did they leave in a hurry? Get lost? Or is this something worse? I'm no detective, but I've seen enough Dateline episodes to know this isn't good. I pocket the scarf and take a photo of the shoe with my phone, hands shaking. The disturbing quiet of the forest feels like it's mocking me, daring me to keep looking. I drag Juniper back to the van, my boots sinking in the mud. I'm second-guessing everything now, staying here, ignoring the coin toss, even talking to Ria and Torin. Back at the pullout, I checked the van's locks twice, my paranoia in overdrive. I could drive to Arcata, tell someone about the scarf and shoe, but what if I'm overreacting? I mean, people lose stuff all the time, right? Still, the scary weight of that clearing sticks with me, like I've stumbled into something I can't unsee. As I climb into the driver's seat, ready to bail, I notice something new. A faint scratch on the van's back door, long and deliberate, like someone dragged a key across it. My blood runs cold. I didn't hear anything last night, but Juniper did. The horror of it hits me. This wasn't here yesterday. Someone, or something, was out here, close enough to touch my van. I start the engine, heart pounding, but I don't know where to go or what to do next. The van's engine sputters as I peel out of the pullout, gravel crunching under the tires. My hands are sweaty on the wheel, eyes darting to the rearview mirror, half expecting to see someone chasing me. Arcata's only a few miles away, but the fog's so thick it's like driving through a nightmare. Juniper's whining in the back, pacing, her claws clicking on the floor. That scratch on the van's door keeps flashing in my mind. Long, deliberate, like a warning. The horror of it sinking in deep, and I can't shake the feeling I'm being watched, like the forest itself is alive and pissed I'm here. I try the radio to drown out my thoughts, but it's just static, hissing like whispers. I'm halfway to town when I spot something on the road. A figure, standing dead center, motionless. My heart lurches. I slam the brakes, the van skidding. It's a man, tall, wearing a dark jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. He doesn't move, just stares through the windshield. The scary thing is, I can't see his face, just shadows where it should be. Juniper's barking now, frantic. I lean on the horn, but he doesn't flinch. I'm frozen, gripping the wheel. This isn't some hitchhiker. Hitchhikers don't stand like statues in the middle of nowhere. I flash my high beams, hoping to scare him off. For a second, I catch a glimpse. Pale skin, eyes too wide, like he's not blinking. Then he steps off the road, vanishing into the trees so fast it's like he was never there. My stomach's in knots. The disturbing truth hits me. That wasn't random. He wanted me to see him. I floor the gas, the van lurching forward, but my eyes keep flicking to the woods, expecting him to reappear. I make it to Arcata, pulling into the first gas station I see. The neon lights feel like a lifeline, but my hands are still shaking as I fill the tank. I check my phone. Finally, a signal. I call Ria's number, the one she gave me at the gas station. It goes straight to voicemail, her chipper voice asking me to leave a message. I don't. Instead, I text Torin. You guys okay? Found some weird stuff. No reply. The horror of the empty clearing, the scarf, the shoe. It's all piling up, screaming that something's seriously wrong. Inside the gas station, I grab a coffee and ask the clerk, a bored guy with a nose ring, if he's seen a purple-haired girl or a lanky dude with a vape. He shrugs, says he sees dozens of vanlifers daily. I mention the man on the road, and his face changes, just for a second. Lots of weirdos out here, he mutters, avoiding eye contact. I press him, but he clams up, like he's scared to say more. I leave, the disturbing weight of his reaction sticking with me. Northern California's got a rep for strange folks, but this feels different, like I've stumbled into something evil. Back in the van, I lock the doors and try to think. I could go to the cops, show them the scarf and the photo of the shoe, but what do I say? Hey, I found some trash and saw a creepy guy? They'd laugh me out of the station. Still, I drive to the Arcata Police Department, parking across the street. I'm about to get out when I notice something in the side mirror. A dark jacket, a baseball cap, moving behind a dumpster. My blood freezes. It's him. The same guy? He's not hiding, just standing there, staring. The scary part? He's closer now. Close enough I can see a faint smile. I start the van, peeling out so fast Juniper yelps. My mind's racing, piecing things together. The scratch, the clearing, the man. He's connected to whatever happened to Ria and Torin. I know it in my gut. I drive aimlessly through Arcata, passing quirky shops and murals, but the charm's gone. Every alley feels like a trap, every shadow a threat. I pull into a Walmart parking lot, figuring it's safer with people around. But as I catch my breath, I see it. A note tucked under my wiper, folded neatly. My heart's pounding so hard I can hear it. I grab the note, hands trembling. It's written in block letters, Stop looking. No signature, just those two words, sharp and final. The horror of it crashes over me like a wave. Someone's been close enough to touch my van, again. I scan the lot, but there's no one, just shoppers and carts. Juniper's growling, her eyes locked on the window. I follow her gaze and see him, the man in the cap, standing at the edge of the lot, motionless. He raises a hand, pointing at me, then turns and walks into the fog. I'm shaking, realizing this isn't just a bad night. This is a hunt. I crumple the note, my mind spinning. I could leave Arcata, drive south, never look back. But Rhea and Torin, what if they're still out there, hurt, or worse? I'm no hero, but I can't just run. Not yet. The disturbing truth is, I'm in this now, whether I like it or not. I check the locks again, knife back in my hand, and try to plan my next move, but the man's smile keeps flashing in my head, like a promise of something awful coming. The Walmart parking lot feels like a cage, every car a potential hiding spot. I'm clutching the crumpled note, stop looking, and Juniper's growling low, her eyes fixed on the fog beyond the lot. I start the van, heart hammering, and pull onto Arcata's streets, weaving through quiet neighborhoods. The man in the cap is out there, hunting me, and the horror of it's choking me. I glance at the scarf and shoe in the passenger seat, proof Rhea and Torin are in trouble, or worse. I can't go to the cops now. That note means someone's watching close. My only shot is to get out of Arcata, fast. I hit Highway 101 south, the redwoods blurring past. The fog's thinning, but the road feels endless, like it's looping me back to danger. Juniper's pacing, sensing my panic. I keep checking the mirrors, expecting to see him, the man with the smile, tailgating me. My phone buzzes, a text from an unknown number. You can't leave. My stomach drops. The scary part isn't the words. It's that I never gave anyone my number. I toss the phone, hands shaking, and push the van harder, the engine whining. A sign for a rest area flashes by, and I swerve in, desperate for a plan. The lot's empty except for a semi-truck, its driver asleep. I park under a flickering light, grabbing my knife. I'm not safe here, but I need to think. I dig through Rhea's scarf, finding a folded photo inside, a Polaroid of her and Torin, smiling at a beach. On the back, in shaky handwriting, he's watching us. The disturbing realization hits. They knew they were being hunted. I'm not just running from a killer, I'm running from their nightmare. Headlights sweep the lot, and a pickup truck pulls in, slow, circling my van. My pulse spikes. It's not him. I can't see the driver, but the way it moves feels wrong, like a predator stalking. I start the engine, but the truck blocks the exit, idling. Juniper's barking, frantic. I'm trapped, the horror of being cornered sinking in. I grab a flashlight, shining it at the truck. The driver's window is tinted, but I swear I see that cap, that smile. The truck revs, then peels out, leaving me gasping, sweat soaking my shirt. I bolt from the rest area, taking a side road into the woods. Bad move, I know, but I'm not thinking straight. The road narrows, branches scraping the van like claws. My headlights catch something, a figure darting across the path. I slam the brakes, skidding. It's not the man. It's Rhea, her purple hair matted, face bloody. She's screaming, "Run, Elias," before vanishing into the trees. The scary truth crashes over me. She's alive, but she's bait. I want to help, but my gut screams trap. I keep driving, the road turning to mud. The van fishtails, tires spinning. I'm deep in the forest now, no idea where I am. My phone's dead, no signal anyway. Juniper's whimpering, and I'm muttering apologies to her, to Rhea, to myself. The disturbing quiet of the woods is shattered by a thud on the roof. Something heavy lands, rocking the van. I swerve, trying to shake it off, but it's no animal. The knife's useless now. Whatever's up there is coming for me, and the horror of it's paralyzing. The thudding stops, but I hear scraping, like metal on metal. I glance at the side mirror. Empty, but I know he's there. The man, the killer, he's playing with me. I spot a clearing ahead, maybe a logging road. I gun it, the van bouncing over ruts. For a second, I think I've lost him. Then I see it. Another note, taped to the inside of my windshield, where it wasn't before. Found you. My scream echoes in the van. He's been inside. The scary reality is, I'm not escaping. He's letting me run. I ditch the main road, veering onto a dirt path barely wide enough for the van. The trees are so dense they block the moon, and my headlights flicker, threatening to die. I'm crying now, begging Juniper to stay quiet. I don't know if Ria's still out there or if she's gone. All I know is I'm in a life or death game, and I'm losing. The path ends at a rusted gate, locked. I'm trapped again, the horror of being cornered worse than ever. I hear boots on gravel, slow, deliberate, getting closer. I kill the lights, crouching low with Juniper, knife in hand. The footsteps stop outside the van, and I hold my breath, praying he doesn't know I'm here. But the silence is worse, like he's waiting me out. I peek through the curtain, seeing nothing but darkness. Then, a whisper right outside the window, Elias. My name, spoken like a lover's promise. The disturbing certainty hits. I'm not getting out of this alive unless I fight. I grip the knife, ready to bolt, but the night feels like it's swallowing me whole. The whisper lingers, my name hanging in the air like a curse. I'm crouched in the van, Juniper trembling against me, the knife slick with sweat in my hand. The gate ahead is locked, the forest a wall of black. I can't stay here. The killer's close, his boots crunching again, circling. The horror of being hunted is unbearable, but I make a choice. I'll run on foot, use the trees for cover. It's a desperate plan, but sitting here's a death sentence. I grab Juniper's leash, whisper, "We're gonna make it," and crack the door, slipping into the night. The fog's back, curling like smoke, making every tree look like him. I move fast, Juniper silent for once, her instincts kicking in. The scary part is how quiet it is. No birds, no wind, just my heartbeat and the faint snap of twigs behind me. I'm no survivalist. I'm a barista who thought van life was cool. My mistake was thinking I could outrun this. I duck behind a redwood, catching my breath, but I hear it, a low hum, like a lullaby, coming from the dark. It's him, taunting me. I push deeper into the woods, tripping over roots, my boots sinking in mud. The hum follows, closer now. I think of Ria's bloody face, her scream to run. Was she warning me or luring me? The disturbing doubt gnaws at me. I find a stream, shallow but fast, and wade through, hoping to lose my scent. Juniper's whining, her leash tangled. I untie it, letting her run free. She's faster without me. Big mistake. She bolts, and I hear a yelp, then silence. My heart shatters. I've lost her, and the horror of it fuels my panic. I stumble into a clearing, and there's my van. Impossible, but it's there, doors open, lights on. My mind screams trap, but I'm so tired, so scared, I creep closer. Inside, I see Juniper, tied up, alive but terrified. And Ria, bound, gagged, her eyes pleading. The killers baited me back. I grip the knife, stepping inside, but the door slams shut. The scary truth hits. He's here. I spin, and he's behind me, cap low, smile wide, a blade glinting. "You looked," he says, voice calm, like we're friends. I lunge, stabbing wildly, but he's fast, dodging, laughing. The van's a cage now, my sanctuary turned slaughterhouse. Ria's screaming through the gag, and I'm fighting for us both. I nick his arm, blood spraying, but he grabs my wrist, twisting until the knife drops. The horror of his strength is unreal. He's not human, not anymore. He pins me, his blade at my throat, whispering about how I'll join the others. I think of Redding, my old life, how I should have stayed. A crash, Juniper's loose, lunging at him. It's enough. I scramble free, grabbing a wrench from the floor, swinging hard. It connects, his head snapping back. He stumbles, and I grab Ria, dragging her out. We run, the forest a blur, but I hear him behind us, laughing through blood. We reach a road, headlights blinding us. A truck stops, an old man yelling to get in. We do, Ria sobbing, me clutching her. The disturbing twist, the driver's wearing a cap, just like him. My heart stops. We're speeding away, but the driver's humming that same lullaby. Ria doesn't notice, too broken, but I do. I glance at his hands, scarred, like they've held too many knives. The horror sinks in. We didn't escape. This is his partner, or worse, another killer. I whisper to Ria, we're not safe, but she's gone, staring blankly. I fumble for the door, but it's locked. The driver smiles in the rear view, eyes cold. My mistake was trusting anyone in Arcata. The truck veers off the highway, onto a dirt road. I'm screaming, banging the window, but no one hears. Ria's silent, like she's given up. The driver stops at a cabin, the man in the cap waiting outside, blood on his face, still smiling. The scary reality is, this was their plan: 2 predators, 1 trap. They drag us out, Juniper's leash dangling empty. I fight, but it's over. The forest swallows our screams, and the tragedy is complete. I thought I could save us, but I led us to the slaughter. The cabin door creaks open, and they push us inside. It smells of rust and fear, walls lined with photos, dozens of Vanlifers, smiling in Polaroids, just like Ria's. My face is there too, taken at the gas station days ago. The horror of how long they've watched me, planned this, breaks me. The man in the cap steps closer, blade raised, and I know this is the end. I whisper an apology to Juniper, to Ria, as the darkness closes in, and Arcata claims us forever. The van's engine ticks as it cools, parked on a quiet street near Arcata's community forest. It's late, the kind of late where the world feels too still. My name's Nora Calvert, I'm 27 years old, and I live in Chico, a few hours south. Been living in my converted Ford Transit for a year, chasing solitude and cheap rent. Tonight, I'm in Arcata, drawn by the redwoods and the promise of a chill spot to crash. But the streetlights flicker, and the fog rolling in makes everything look like a horror movie set. I lock the doors, my fingers lingering on the deadbolt, trying to ignore the creepy vibe. My van's cozy, decked out with a pull-out bed, a propane stove, and a shelf of thrift store books. I've got my cat, a tabby named Sable, sprawled on the quilt. She's usually lazy, but tonight she's twitchy, her eyes darting to the windows. I tell myself it's just the fog, or maybe a raccoon rummaging outside. I met a local earlier at a coffee shop, a guy named Gideon, mid-30s, with a scruffy beard and a nervous laugh. He gave me tips on where to park, said this street was safe. Nice guy, but something about him felt off, like he was trying too hard. I heat up some soup, the steam curling in the chilly air. The fog's so thick now I can't see the street, just vague shapes that could be trees or something worse. I've parked in weird spots before, desert lots, urban backstreets. But Arcata's got this heavy, disturbing energy. I try to laugh it off, like, come on, Nora, it's just a hippie town, not a slasher flick. But Sable's staring at the door, her tail puffed up. I grab my multi-tool, the one with a tiny knife, and set it by the sink, just in case. The van's battery is low, so I skip the string lights, plunging the interior into shadow. I'm not great with mechanics, my brother back in Chico's the handy one, but I know enough to conserve power. Vanlife's taught me to trust my instincts, and right now, they're screaming that something's wrong. I pull out my sketch pad, doodling to calm my nerves. The page fills with jagged lines, like the fog seeping into my brain. I think about Gideon again, how he kept asking where I was parking tonight. Sable hisses, low and sharp, snapping me out of it. She's crouched by the window, ears flat. I freeze, listening. There's a faint scrape outside, like metal on pavement. My heart kicks up, the horror of the sound cutting through the quiet. I tell myself it's nothing, a branch, maybe, but Sable's not buying it. I creep to the window, parting the curtain just enough to peek. The fog's a wall, but I swear I see a shape move, tall and slow, gone before I can blink. My stomach twists. I check my phone, 1 bar, barely enough to text. I shoot a message to my brother, saying I'm in Arcata, just in case. No reply. He's probably asleep. I think about moving the van, finding a Walmart lot or something, but the idea of driving through that fog feels scarier than staying put. I'm not a coward, but I've read about Northern California's dark side, missing hikers, strange drifters. I push the thought away, but it sticks, like the damp air clinging to my skin. I climb into bed, pulling the quilt tight. Sable curls up next to me, but she's tense, her claws digging into the blanket. I try to focus on normal stuff, like the soup I ate or the playlist I was vibing to earlier. But every creak of the van makes me flinch. I tell myself I'm overreacting, that Gideon was just a quirky local, not some creep. Still, I keep the multi-tool close, its weight comforting. The fog presses against the windows, and the disturbing quiet of the night feels like it's holding its breath. I'm drifting off when Sable bolts upright, hissing again. My eyes snap open, heart pounding. There's a sound outside. Not a scrape this time, but a soft thump, like something heavy settling against the van. The scary part is how deliberate it feels, like someone's testing me. I grab the multi-tool, my hands shaking, and listen. Nothing. Then, another thump, closer, near the back door. The horror of it hits me. I'm not alone out here. I sit up, peering through the curtain. The fog's still thick, but there's a shadow, too solid to be missed, lingering near the van. It's not moving, just standing there. My mind races. Could be a neighbor, a drunk, anything. But Sable's growling now, and I trust her more than my excuses. The night feels alive, the disturbing weight of Arcata wrapping around me like a noose. I grip the multi-tool, waiting, praying it's nothing, but knowing deep down it's something awful. The thumping stops, but my heart's still racing, the multi-tool sweaty in my grip. Dawn's creeping through the fog, turning Arcata's community forest into a gray blur outside my van. Sable's crouched by the door, ears pinned, like she's waiting for round two. I didn't sleep, just sat there, listening to every creak, expecting that shadow to come back. My phone's at 10%, still one bar, and my brother hasn't texted back. The horror of last night's lurking shape clings to me, and this quiet street doesn't feel safe anymore. I need to move, but I'm paralyzed, second-guessing every choice. I check the van's locks, then peek outside. The fog's thinner, but the street's empty. No shadow, no footprints, just wet pavement. My relief's cut short when I spot it. A dent on the van's side, small but fresh, like someone leaned into it hard. My stomach twists. That wasn't there yesterday. The scary thought hits. Someone was close enough to touch my home. I'm no mechanic, but I know dents don't appear by magic. I snap a photo, hands shaky, telling myself it's evidence, though for what, I don't know. I start the engine, deciding to head into Arcata's downtown. A coffee shop, people, anything to shake this creepy vibe. But the van sputters, the dashboard flashing a check engine light. Of course, because Vanlife loves screwing you at the worst moment. Back in Chico, I'd call my brother to fix this, but here, I'm screwed. The disturbing part is, I'm stuck on this street until I figure it out. I pop the hood, pretending I know what I'm doing, but it's just wires and grease to me. The fog's lifting, but the forest still feels like it's watching. While I'm poking at the engine, a guy jogs by, early 40s, wiry, with a dog that looks too friendly. He waves, says, "Rough morning." I force a smile, mentioning the dent, fishing for a reaction. His face tightens, just for a second, before he shrugs. Kids, probably. Or drifters. His tone's too casual, like he's hiding something. I think of Gideon, his nervous laugh at the coffee shop. The horror of not trusting anyone in this town is sinking in. I thank the guy, but his dog's sniffing the dent, whining like it smells trouble. I slam the hood shut, deciding to walk to a mechanic. It's a mile, maybe, and I can't sit here with a busted van and a dent that screams danger. I leash Sable, which she hates, and grab my backpack. The street's still quiet, but I notice something. A flyer taped to a pole, half torn. It's a missing person notice, a woman, 20s, last seen near the community forest. My blood runs cold. The scary similarity to me, a solo vanlifer, feels like a warning. I pocket the flyer, my mind racing. The walk to town's tense, Sable pulling at the leash. Every rustle in the bushes makes me jump, expecting that shadow from last night. I pass a parked car, a beat-up sedan, and swear I see someone inside, ducked low. My heart skips, but when I look again, it's empty. I'm losing it, seeing threats everywhere. The disturbing thing is, I can't tell what's real anymore. I think about Gideon again, how he asked too many questions. Was he just friendly, or was he sizing me up? I reach a garage, a grimy place with a sign reading Humble Auto. The mechanic, a woman named Marla, says the check engine light's probably a sensor but needs a day to fix. I hesitate. Leaving the van feels like abandoning my fortress. But I can't drive it like this, so I hand over the keys, feeling exposed. Marla notices the dent, raises an eyebrow. "You pissed someone off?" she asks, half joking. I laugh it off, but the horror of her words sticks. I ask about the missing woman, and Marla's face darkens. "Third one this year," she mutters. I head to a diner across the street, Sable tied up outside. The place smells of bacon and stale coffee, but it's packed, which feels safer. I order a coffee, scanning the flyer again. The woman's name was Lila, a backpacker. My mind spins. Could she have been a vanlifer too? I text my brother again, attaching the dent photo, but my phone dies before it sends. The scary part is how alone I feel, like Arcade is cutting me off from the world. I overhear two locals at the counter whispering about that guy who hangs around the forest. My ears perk up, but they clam up when they see me listening. As I sip my coffee, I notice a napkin on my table, folded neatly. I didn't see the waitress leave it. I unfold it, and my breath catches. "You're next." Block letters, black ink, like a kid's prank, but it's not. My hands shake, the horror of those words crashing over me. I scan the diner, but no one's watching. The waitress is busy, the locals are eating. Someone slipped this under my nose. I grab Sable and bolt, the napkin crumpled in my fist, the disturbing certainty growing. Someone's not just watching me, they're closing in. I'm back on the street, Sable tugging at her leash, the napkin. "You're next," burning a hole in my pocket. Arcada's morning bustle feels like a lie, the quirky shops and murals hiding something sinister. My van's stuck at the garage, and my phone's dead, leaving me exposed. The horror of that note has me jumping at every shadow, every stranger's glance. I head toward the community forest, not sure why. Maybe to retrace last night's shadow, maybe to prove I'm not crazy. But Sable's growling, her fur bristling, and the scary truth is sinking in. I'm walking into a trap, and I can't stop myself. The forest path is muddy, redwoods looming like silent judges. I clutch my multi-tool, its tiny blade laughable against whatever's out here. The flyer about Lila, the missing woman, keeps flashing in my mind. Her smile, her backpack, too much like me. I'm no detective, but I've watched enough true crime to know patterns. Solo travelers, quiet towns, and predators who blend in. The disturbing quiet of the forest is broken by a snap. A branch, maybe, but it feels deliberate. I spin, seeing nothing but trees. Sable's hackles are up, her eyes locked on the path behind us. I keep moving, deeper into the woods, my boots sinking in the dirt. Then I see it. A backpack, half buried under leaves, straps torn. My heart lurches. It's not mine, but it could be Lila's or someone else's. I kneel, brushing dirt away, and find a keychain with the name, Gideon. My blood runs cold. The guy from the coffee shop, with his nervous laugh and too many questions. The horror hits. This isn't random. He's connected, and he knows where I parked. I grab the keychain, my hands shaking, and back away, Sable whining. A rustle, close, too close. I freeze, gripping the multi-tool. A man steps from the trees, not Gideon, but someone else, tall, gaunt, with a flannel shirt and eyes that don't blink. He's holding a rope, coiled like a snake. "Lost?" he asks, voice soft, like we're friends. Sable snarls, lunging, and I yank her back. The scary part isn't the rope, it's his smile, like he's already won. I mutter, "Just hiking," and turn, walking fast, but I hear his boots behind me, slow, steady. He's not rushing, he knows I'm trapped. I break into a jog, Sable keeping pace, the path twisting deeper into the forest. My mind screaming, "Get out, get help," but the trees feel like a maze, closing in. I glance back, and he's still there, 100 yards back, that rope swinging. The disturbing certainty grips me. He's the kidnapper, and I'm his next Lila. I think of the napkin, the dent, Gideon's keychain. Are they working together? My lungs burn, but I push harder, spotting a clearing ahead. Maybe a road, maybe salvation. But the horror of his calm pursuit tells me he's done this before. The clearing's empty, just a fire pit and tire tracks. My heart sinks, no road, no help. I duck behind a stump, Sable trembling against me. The man's footsteps stop, and I hear him whistle, low and eerie, like he's calling me out. I'm shaking, the multi-tool useless against a guy built like that. The scary thing is, I'm not just running from him. I'm running from a plan, something bigger. I think of Gideon, how he knew my van, my route. The disturbing pieces click. He set me up, fed me to this guy. I peek over the stump, and he's closer, scanning the clearing, rope in one hand, a knife in the other now. My breath catches. He's not just a kidnapper. He's a killer, and I'm out of moves. Sable's growling, giving us away, and I clamp her mouth shut, tears stinging my eyes. The horror of being hunted like this, in broad daylight, is unreal. I spot a trail leading out, maybe back to town. I have to try. I whisper to Sable, "We're going," and bolt, praying we're faster than him. I'm sprinting, branches whipping my face, Sable's leash tangling in my legs. The whistling follows, closer now, like he's toying with me. I trip, scraping my knees, and scramble up, the path blurring through tears. The scary part is how calm he is, like he knows every inch of this forest. I reach a fork, one path to town, the other deeper into the woods. I choose town, but then I see it, a second figure ahead, smaller, familiar. It's Gideon, standing there, watching. My heart stops. The disturbing truth crashes in. They're both in on it. I veer off the path, crashing through underbrush, Sable panting beside me. The whistling's behind me, Gideon's ahead, and I'm caught in their net. My mind's racing. Hide, fight, something, but I'm no hero, just a girl who wanted freedom. The forest feels alive, conspiring against me, and the horror of being cornered is suffocating. I spot a hollow under a fallen log, big enough for me and Sable. I dive in, pulling leaves over us, praying they pass. But the whistling stops, and boots crunch nearby, slow, deliberate, like they know exactly where I am. I'm crammed under the log, Sable pressed against me, her fur damp with sweat. The boots crunch closer, and I hold my breath, the multi-tool shaking in my hand. The horror of being hunted by this gaunt man and Gideon is suffocating, their whistling echoing in my skull. Arcada's community forest feels like a prison, the redwoods hiding me, but also trapping me. I can't stay here, they're too close. I whisper to Sable, we're running, and scramble out, sprinting through the underbrush, branches clawing my face. The scary part is, I hear them both now, two sets of footsteps, one heavy, one light, closing in like wolves. I dodge trees, my lungs burning, Sable's leash dragging in the dirt. The path's gone, and I'm just running blind, aiming for where I think town might be. My phone's dead, my van's at the garage, and I'm alone except for Sable. The disturbing truth hits. They planned this, Gideon luring me to this street, the gaunt man waiting. I spot a stream and splash through it, hoping to throw them off. The cold water shocks me awake, but the whistling starts again, closer, like they're hurting me. The horror of their coordination makes my skin crawl. I stumble into a ravine, sliding down mud, Sable tumbling beside me. My knees bleeding, but I don't stop. At the bottom, I see a dirt road, maybe a logging trail. My heart leaps. It could lead to help. I run, Sable panting. But then I hear an engine, low and growling. Headlights pierce the fog, a pickup truck creeping toward me. I dive behind a boulder, praying it's a ranger, but the gaunt man steps out, rope in hand, scanning the dark. The scary reality is, they've got wheels, and I'm on foot, outmatched. I creep along the ravine, keeping low, Sable silent for once. The truck idles, its lights sweeping the road. I'm shaking, the horror of being so close to him paralyzing. I think of Lila, the missing woman, and wonder if this is how she felt, cornered, hopeless. I spot a trail climbing out of the ravine, steep but possible. It's my only shot. I start up, grabbing roots, but my foot slips, sending rocks clattering. The truck's engine revs, and I hear the gaunt man shout, "She's here." The disturbing speed of their reaction tells me they've done this before. I reach the top, gasping, and see a clearing with a rusted shed. I sprint to it, hoping for a lock, a weapon, anything. Inside, it's dark, smelling of oil and rot. I bar the door with a plank, Sable growling softly. The truck's closer now, tires crunching. I find a crowbar in the corner, better than my multi-tool. The scary part is, I'm not just hiding, I'm preparing to fight. I peek through a crack in the wall and see Gideon, not the gaunt man, walking toward the shed, a flashlight in one hand, a knife in the other. My stomach twists, he's the bait, drawing me out. The flashlight beam hits the shed, and I duck, heart pounding. Gideon's calling my name, his voice soft, like we're still at the coffee shop. "Nora, come on, you're scared, I get it." The horror of his fake concern makes me sick. Sable's trembling, and I grip the crowbar, ready to swing if he breaks in. The truck's engine cuts off, and I hear the gaunt man's boots again, heavier, circling the shed. The disturbing realization hits. They're not rushing because they know I'm trapped, like a rat in a cage. I search the shed for another way out, finding a loose board in the back. I pry it open, the wood splintering, and squeeze through with Sable, scraping my arm bloody. We're in dense woods again, the fog thicker, swallowing sound. I run, but the flashlight beam follows, Gideon's voice fading, but the gaunt man's whistling picking up. The scary thing is, they're not giving up, they're enjoying this. I spot a road sign through the trees, maybe a mile away. If I can reach it, I might flag someone down. But my legs are jelly, and the horror of their pursuit is breaking me. The road's closer now, pavement glinting in the moonlight. I'm so focused on it, I don't see the route. I trip, sprawling in the dirt, Sable yelping as her leash tangles. The crowbar skids away, and I scramble for it, but the whistling's right behind me. I turn, and the gaunt man's there, rope raised, eyes gleaming like he's won. I scream, swinging the multi-tool, but it's useless. He grabs my wrist, twisting, and Sable lunges, biting his leg. He curses, kicking her, and I break free, grabbing the crowbar, running for the road. The disturbing truth is, I'm not escaping. They're letting me think I can. I hit the pavement, waving my arms, and a car slows, a beat-up sedan, like the one I saw earlier. The driver's an older woman, her face kind but wary. "You okay?" she asks. I'm sobbing, babbling about the men, the shed, Sable limping beside me. She says, "Get in, I'll take you to the police." I hesitate, the horror of Gideon's fake kindness still fresh, but I'm out of options. I climb in with Sable, the car pulling away. The road's empty, but I keep looking back, expecting the truck. The woman's quiet, too quiet, and the scary feeling creeps back. She's driving away from town, not toward it. The sedan's seats smell of mildew, and the woman's driving too fast, her knuckles white on the wheel. Sable's curled up in my lap, whimpering, her leg bruised from the gaunt man's kick. I'm clutching the crowbar, my arm throbbing, the horror of the forest chase still pulsing through me. I ask, "Police station's back in Arcata, right?" She nods, but her eyes don't meet mine, and the road's getting narrower, trees closing in. The disturbing realization hits. I made a deadly mistake trusting her. I glance at the door, but it's locked, the handle stiff. My heart's sinking, and the scary truth is, I've jumped from one trap to another. I try to stay calm, asking her name. "Clara," she says, voice flat. I mention the gaunt man, Gideon, the rope, watching for a reaction. Her jaw tightens, and she mutters, "You shouldn't have run." My blood freezes. The horror of her words confirms it. She's with them. I think of Lila, the backpack, the missing women. This isn't just a kidnapping ring. It's a family, a sick game. I grip the crowbar, pretending to adjust Sable, and whisper to her, "We're getting out." The car's slowing, a cabin looming ahead, its windows dark, promising something awful. I fake a cough, leaning forward, and swing the crowbar at Clara's head. It grazes her, and she swerves, cursing, the car fishtailing. I hit the door, forcing it open, and tumble out with Sable, rolling into a ditch. The pain's blinding, but I run, Sable limping beside me. The scary part is, Clara's not chasing. She's laughing, like this was part of the plan. Headlights flare, the pickup truck from the forest roaring up. The gaunt man's driving, Gideon in the passenger seat, both smiling. The disturbing twist guts me. They wanted me to run, to feel hope, just to crush it. I dive into the woods, Sable struggling to keep up. The truck's engine fades, but I hear boots. 3 sets now, Clara's joined them. My mind's racing, replaying every mistake. Parking on that street, trusting Gideon, getting in that car. The horror of their teamwork is overwhelming. They're a pack, and I'm prey. I find a hollow under a tree, pulling Sable in, covering us with leaves. My crowbar's gone, lost in the ditch, and the multi-tool's pathetic. The whistling starts again, Clara's voice joining in, high and cruel. I'm crying, Sable's warmth the only thing keeping me sane. The boots stop nearby, and I hear Gideon, his voice soft, mocking. "Nora, you're making this fun." The scary reality is, they're not just kidnappers, they're sadists, dragging this out for kicks. I think of Chico, my brother, how I should have stayed put. My biggest mistake was thinking I could handle Vanlife alone. The disturbing quiet falls, and I pray they've moved on, but then I feel it. A hand on my ankle, yanking me from the hollow. It's Clara, her kind face gone, a blade glinting. I scream, kicking, but she's strong, dragging me into the open. Sable lunges, biting, but Gideon grabs her, twisting her neck until she goes limp. My world shatters, the horror of losing her ripping me apart. The gaunt man's there, rope ready, and they tie me, my wrists burning. The cabin's close, its door open like a mouth. Inside, I see photos on the walls, dozens of women, some alive, some not, all staring. Lila's there, her eyes empty. The scary truth hits. This is their gallery, and I'm the next exhibit. They shove me into a chair, the gaunt man sharpening his knife, Clara humming that damn whistle. Gideon's the worst, kneeling close, whispering, "You were special, Nora." The disturbing part is, he means it, like I'm a prize. I'm sobbing, begging, but they just laugh. I think of Sable, my van, the life I lost. My final mistake was fighting back. They wanted my fear, and I gave it to them. The gaunt man raises the knife, and I see Clara snap a photo, her smile wide, like this is art. The blade's cold against my neck, and I'm screaming, but the forest swallows it. The horror of Arcada's darkness is complete. They've been doing this for years, hiding in plain sight. The cabin smells of blood and despair, the photos watching me die. I think of the flyer, the dent, the napkin, all the signs I missed. The tragedy is, I thought I could outrun them, but they were always steps ahead, playing me like a song. The knife presses deeper, and my last thought is of Sable, hoping she's free, even if I'm not. The gaunt man pauses, savoring my fear, then slashes, and the world fades. The cabin's walls close in, the photos blurring, Arcada's fog wrapping me like a shroud. The horror of my end is final, a cruel note in their symphony of pain. I'm another face on their wall, another story buried in the forest, and the disturbing truth is, they'll keep hunting, their smiles never fading, as the redwoods stand silent, guarding their secrets. The van's parked on a dead-end road near Arcada's Redwood Park, the engine still warm from the drive. It's pitch black outside, the kind of dark that eats light. My name's Theo Harlan. I'm 32 years old, and I live in Santa Rosa, a few hours south. I've been living in my converted Dodge Ram van for 3 years, chasing quiet spots to clear my head. Tonight, I picked this road for its solitude, but the fog's rolling in, and the redwoods loom like they're hiding something. The horror of this place is already creeping under my skin, and I lock the doors, double-checking the windows. My van's a fortress, solar panels, a fold-out bed, and a mini fridge stocked with beer. My only company's my parrot, Reggie, a grumpy African gray who's muttering nonsense in his cage. He's usually chill, but tonight he's flapping, his eyes darting to the windows. I tell myself it's just the fog, maybe an owl spooking him. Earlier, I stopped at a bar in Arcata and met a woman, Sadie, a local with sharp eyes and a quick smile. She warned me about parking too far from town, said the woods get weird. I laughed it off, but now I'm not so sure. I crack a beer, the hiss loud in the quiet. The fog's so thick I can't see the road, just vague shapes that mess with my head. I've camped in sketchy spots before, desert flats, city lots, but Arcata's got this disturbing vibe, like the air's holding a grudge. I try to shake it, joking to Reggie, "We're not in a slasher flick, buddy." But he squawks, loud, and I grab my flashlight, its beam weak against the dark. I keep a hammer under the bed, just in case, and my hand's itching to grab it. The van's battery is solid, but I skipped the heater to save juice. I'm no tech wizard. Back in Santa Rosa, I was a line cook, not a mechanic. Vanlife's my escape from greasy kitchens, but it's got its own risks. My gut's telling me something's off, and I learned long ago to listen. I pull out my notebook, scribbling random thoughts to stay calm. Sadie's warning keeps circling back. Why'd she care where I parked? The scary part is, she asked my plans twice, like she was memorizing them. Reggie's still freaking out, his cage rattling. I shush him, but he's staring at the back door, feathers puffed. I freeze, hearing a faint scrape outside, like something dragging on gravel. My heart kicks up, the horror of the sound cutting through the fog. I tell myself it's an animal, but Reggie's not buying it, and neither am I. I creep to the window, easing the curtain back. The fog's a wall, but there's a shape. Tall, still, too human to be a tree. My stomach drops, and I grip the flashlight tighter. I check my phone. No signal, just like Sadie said it'd be out here. I think about moving the van, finding a brighter spot, but driving in this fog feels like suicide. I'm not a paranoid guy, but I've heard stories about Northern California, drifters, cults, people vanishing. The disturbing weight of those tales hits hard now. I grab the hammer, its weight grounding me, and sit back, trying to focus on normal stuff, like the beer I'm drinking or the tacos I ate earlier. But the scrape comes again, closer, deliberate. I'm tense, every creak of the van making me flinch. Reggie's gone quiet, which is worse. He only does that when he's scared. I try to laugh it off, muttering, "Come on, Theo, it's just fog." But Sadie's face keeps flashing in my mind. Her smile too sharp, her questions too pointed. Did she send someone out here? I push the thought away, but it sticks, like the damp air on my skin. The scary thing is, I'm alone, no one knows I'm here, and that shape outside hasn't moved. I climb into bed, hammer by my side, Reggie's cage covered to calm him. The fog presses against the windows, and the van feels smaller, like it's shrinking. I try to sleep, focusing on the hum of the fridge, but my mind's racing. What if that shape's still out there, watching? I've dealt with weirdos before, drunks, thieves, but this feels different, like I've stumbled into something dark. The horror of Arcada's isolation is real, and I'm starting to regret this stop. I'm drifting off when Reggie screeches, a sound that rips me awake. My eyes snap open, heart hammering. There's a new sound, a soft tap, like fingers on the van's roof. The disturbing part is how rhythmic it is, like someone's counting. I grab the hammer, sliding out of bed, and peek through the curtain. The shape's gone, but the tapping's louder, moving to the side door. The scary truth hits. Someone's out there, and they're not leaving until they get what they want. Morning fog blankets the van, turning Redwood Park into a ghost town of trees. I didn't sleep, not after those taps on the roof. My hammer's still in hand. Reggie's quiet but twitchy, his feathers ruffled. My name's Theo Harlan, and I'm regretting parking on this dead-end road in Arcata. The horror of last night's shadow and tapping clings like damp clothes, and my phone still got no signal. I'm itching to leave, but the van's low on gas. Classic Vanlife screw-up. The scary part is, I'm stuck here until I figure out my next move, and the fog's making everything feel like a trap. I step outside to check the van, hammer tucked in my belt. The air's thick, the redwoods swallowing sound. No scratches or dents, but I find something worse. A cigarette butt, fresh, near the rear tire. I don't smoke, and this wasn't here yesterday. My stomach twists. The disturbing realization hits that someone was right here, close enough to touch my van. I'm no cop, but I've seen enough crime shows to know this isn't random. I kick the butt away, scanning the fog, half expecting that shape to reappear. Back inside, I brew coffee, the stove's hiss grounding me. Reggie's muttering, "Bad man," which freaks me out. He picks up phrases from me, but I never said that. I try to focus, weighing my options. Limp to a gas station or stay put. Arcada's a few miles away, but walking in this fog with a creep out there feels dumb. The horror of being stranded is sinking in. I think of Sadie, her warning about the woods. Was she trying to help, or setting me up? My gut's screaming the latter, and the scary part is, I trusted her smile. I dig out my map, circling gas stations in Arcata. There's one near downtown, maybe a 20-minute drive if the van holds up. But as I'm folding the map, I spot something outside, a piece of paper tucked under my wiper. My heart skips. I grab the hammer and ease the door open, snatching it. It's a bar napkin, like the ones at Sadie's bar, with "Stay" scrawled in red ink. The disturbing weight of it hits me. Someone's been here, again, leaving a message. I crumple it, my hands shaking, and lock the door. I decide to risk the drive. Staying here's a death wish, especially with that napkin and cigarette butt. I start the van, the engine coughing like it's as scared as me. Reggie squawking, "Go, go," and I mutter, "Working on it, buddy." The fog's lighter, but the road's eerie, lined with trees that feel like they're watching. I'm halfway to town when I see tire tracks in the mud, fresh, veering off into the woods. My mind flashes to Sadie. Did she send someone to follow me? The horror of being tracked is real now. The gas station's in sight, its neon sign a beacon. I pull in, hands sweaty, and fill the tank, keeping an eye on the lot. A guy in a hoodie's loitering near the pumps, staring too long. He's not the shape from last night. Shorter, younger, but his vibe's off, like he's waiting for something. I ask the cashier, a bored teen, if she's seen Sadie, describing her sharp eyes. She shrugs, but her co-worker, an older guy, overhears and says, "Sadie's trouble. Steer clear." The scary part is his tone, like he's warning me off a landmine. I'm about to leave when I notice the hoodie guy's gone, but my van's side mirror is tilted like someone messed with it. My pulse spikes. I check the van. Nothing's stolen, but there's a new smell, faint, like cheap cologne. The disturbing truth is, someone was inside while I was paying. I'm freaking out, Reggie screeching, "Bad man." I slam the door, locking it, and peel out, heading for downtown Arcata. I need people, lights, anything to shake this creepy feeling, but the horror's following me. Downtown's busy, with students and hippies milling around. I park near a cafe, hoping the crowd's a shield. But as I'm locking up, I see it. Another napkin, taped to the van's back door, same red ink, saying "Found you." My knees buckle. The scary reality crashes in. They're not just watching. They're toying with me, leaving breadcrumbs of fear. I scan the street, but no one stands out. Sadie's face flashes in my mind, her smile now a grimace. The disturbing question is, how'd they find me so fast? I'm torn, go to the cops or keep moving. The napkins, the cigarette butt, the cologne, they're evidence, but what do I say? Some creeps leaving notes. They'll think I'm nuts. Still, I head toward the police station, hammer in my backpack, Reggie's cage in hand. But as I cross the street, I see him, the hoodie guy from the gas station, leaning against a wall, smirking. He doesn't move, just watches, like he knows I'm screwed. The horror of his confidence tells me I'm not escaping this, not without a fight. The hoodie guy's smirk burns into me as I hustle toward Arcata's police station, Reggie's cage banging against my leg. The downtown crowd feels like a mask, hiding the horror I know's real. Those napkins, "Found you," are stuffed in my pocket, their red ink screaming danger. My van's parked a block away, but I'm not sure it's safe anymore, not with that cologne smell lingering. The scary part is, I'm being hunted, and the disturbing truth is, Sadie's involved. Her warning at the bar wasn't help, it was a lure. I grip my hammer, hidden in my backpack, and push through the fog, Reggie muttering, "Bad man." The police station's in sight, its lights harsh against the gray. I'm rehearsing what to say, napkins, cigarette butt, creepy guy, but I stop short. There's a woman outside, smoking, and it's Sadie. My heart lurches. She's not surprised to see me, just flicks her cigarette and says, "Theo, you look rough." Her voice is too calm, like she's been waiting. The horror of her being here, steps from help, twists my gut. I mumble something about my van, testing her, but her eyes flicker to the street, like she's signaling someone. The scary reality hits, she's not alone. I back away, muttering I forgot something, and bolt down an alley. Reggie's squawking, drawing attention, but I can't stop. The disturbing part is, I hear footsteps behind me, fast, not Sadie's. I glance back, a man, tall, in a leather jacket, his face hidden by a cap. He's not the hoodie guy, but he's trouble, his stride too purposeful. I duck behind a dumpster, heart pounding, and cover Reggie's cage to quiet him. The man slows, scanning the alley, a knife glinting in his hand. The horror of how close he is makes my skin crawl. I wait, barely breathing, until his boots fade. The alley's empty, but I'm shaking, the scary truth sinking in. They're everywhere. Sadie, hoodie guy, this knife guy. I think of the cigarette butt, the cologne, how they've been in my van. It's not just stalking, it's a game, and I'm the prey. I sneak out, sticking to shadows, aiming for my van. I need to get out of Arcata, cops or no cops. But as I near the cafe, I see my van's door ajar. My stomach drops. I locked it, I know I did. I creep closer, hammer ready. Inside, the van's trashed, drawers open, my notebook torn, Reggie's spare cage smashed. The cologne smells stronger, mixed with something worse, like blood. On the bed, there's a new napkin, red ink. Run. The horror crashes over me. They were here, minutes ago, leaving this for me to find. Reggie's trembling, and I'm fighting panic. I check the ignition, keys are still there, thank God. I start the van, peeling out, but the disturbing question gnaws. Where do I go when they're always one step ahead? I hit Highway 101, the fog thinning but the road eerie, redwoods looming. My mind's racing, Sadie's at the station, the knife guys in the alleys, hoodie guys God knows where. The scary part is, they're not random. They're a team, and I'm their target. I think of vanlifers I've met, stories of break-ins, but this is different. Personal, cruel. My gas tank's half full, enough to get to Eureka, maybe. But then I see it in the rear view. A black truck, tailing me, too close. The horror of being followed in broad daylight is unreal. I speed up, the van rattling, Reggie screeching, "Go, go." The truck keeps pace, its driver hidden by tinted windows. I swerve onto a side road, hoping to lose them, but the truck follows, relentless. The disturbing certainty hits. They know my van, my routes, maybe even my plans. I spot a rest area ahead, a few cars parked. I pull in, praying for safety in numbers, but the truck slows, idling at the entrance. My hands are shaking, the hammer useless against a vehicle. The scary reality is, I'm not outrunning this. I park near a family's RV, hoping they'll notice if something goes down. The truck's still there, watching. I dig through my glove box, finding a pocket knife, better than nothing. Then I see him, hoodie guy, stepping out of the truck, lighting a cigarette like the one I found. He's not charging me, just staring, his smirk back. The horror of his confidence is crushing. I think of Sadie, her cigarette at the station, the knife guy's cap. They're closing the net, and the disturbing part is, I don't know why me, why now? I'm about to run for the RV, beg for help, when my phone buzzes, one bar, a text from an unknown number. "You can't hide." My blood runs cold. They have my number, my van, my life. The scary truth is, this isn't just a chase, it's a hunt, and they're savoring it. Hoodie guy flicks his cigarette, walking toward me, slow, like he's got all day. The rest area feels like a trap, the family in the RV oblivious. I grip the pocket knife, knowing it's not enough, and the horror of what's coming feels like a weight I can't shake. The rest area's air feels like ice. Hoodie guy's smirk locking me in place as he walks toward my van, cigarette glowing. Reggie's screeching, "Bad man," and I'm clutching my pocket knife, useless against him, Sadie, and that knife guy. The horror of their hunt is choking me, and the family in the RV nearby is my only shot. I bolt from the van, Reggie's cage in one hand, yelling, "Help." The dad looks up, confused, but hoodie guy's faster, sprinting now. I dive behind a picnic table, the scary reality hitting. They're not letting me reach anyone. The black truck's engine revs, circling the lot like a shark. I crawl under the table, Reggie's cage wedged beside me, his squawks giving me away. The family's packing up, oblivious, and I'm screaming inside. Why don't they see? Hoodie guy's boots crunch closer, and I hear Sadie's voice, calm. "Theo, don't make this hard." She's here too, somewhere in the fog. The disturbing truth is, they've got me boxed in, and the rest area is no sanctuary. It's their playground. I scramble toward the woods, dragging Reggie, praying the trees hide me. The scary part is, I hear the truck's tires on gravel, following. I'm crashing through underbrush, branches snapping, Reggie's cage banging my leg. The fog's back, Arcada's redwoods swallowing sound, and my lungs burn. The horror of running blind is worse than the chase. Every shadows them. I trip over a root, the cage flying, Reggie shrieking as it cracks open. He flaps free, vanishing into the fog, and my heart breaks, but I can't stop. The disturbing sound of boots, multiple sets, echoes behind me. Sadie's laughing, low and cruel, like this is fun. I grip the pocket knife, knowing it's nothing against their knives, their plan. I spot a dirt trail, maybe a hiking path, and veer onto it, hoping it leads to a road. My legs are jelly, the scary weight of their pursuit crushing me. The trail narrows, and I hear water, a creek, shallow but fast. I wade through, the cold biting, thinking it'll mask my scent. But the boots don't stop, and the truck's engine hums nearby, like they're hurting me. The horror of their coordination is unreal. Sadie, hoodie guy, knife guy, all playing roles. I'm not just running from a killer, I'm running from a machine. The trail ends at a clearing, a rusted gate blocking the way. My stomach drops, trapped again. The fog's so thick I can't see 10 feet, but I hear them, closer, whispering my name like a chant. The disturbing part is, they're not rushing, they know I'm cornered. I climb the gate, my hands slipping on wet metal, and drop to the other side, scraping my arm bloody. There's a logging road, tire tracks fresh in the mud. I run, praying for a car, but the truck's headlights pierce the fog, slow, deliberate. The scary truth is, they're letting me run to wear me down. I dive off the road, into dense woods, the underbrush tearing my jeans. The truck stops, doors slamming, and I hear Knife Guy's voice, rough, he's close. My heart's hammering, the horror of being so near them paralyzing. I find a hollow under a fallen log, crawling in, mud caking my face. The pocket knife's all I've got, and it's pathetic. The scary part is, I'm alone now, Reggie's gone, my van's lost, and Arcade has turned into a nightmare. Their whispers are closer, Sadie's laugh cutting through, and I'm fighting not to scream. I hold my breath, the log's damp wood pressing against me. The boots stop, inches away, and I see Knife Guy's shadow, his cap low, a blade glinting. He's sniffing the air, like a dog, and the disturbing certainty hits. He knows I'm here. Sadie calls, "Theo, we just want to talk," her voice dripping with lies. The horror of their game is clear. They're not just killers, they're sadists, savoring my fear. I grip the knife, ready to stab if he finds me. But the scary reality is, I'm out of moves, and they're tightening the noose. Something rustles nearby. A deer, maybe, crashing through the brush. Knife Guy turns, cursing, and the boots move off, chasing the noise. I seize the chance, crawling out, running blind, the fog a curse and a blessing. The logging road's gone, and I'm lost, but I keep moving, the horror of stopping worse than the pain. I hear the truck again, circling, and Sadie's laugh, fainter but still there. The disturbing question gnaws. How do they keep finding me? I spot a light through the trees, a house, maybe. Hope flickers, but the scary truth lingers. Nothing in Arcade is safe. I'm staggering toward the light, my body screaming to quit, when I hear it. A low whistle, sharp, like a signal. The woods go quiet, and the light ahead flickers, not a house but a lantern, swinging in someone's hand. My hope dies. The horror crashes in. It's a trap, and I'm walking right into it. The whistle's closer, boots crunching, and the truck's engine hums, cutting off my retreat. The scary reality is, I'm not escaping. They've been guiding me here, to this light, to them, and the disturbing game's about to end. The lantern sways in the fog. A beacon I thought was salvation, but now screams trap. I'm frozen, pocket knife trembling in my hand. The woods around Arcada's redwood park a cage. The whistle's right behind me, Sadie's laugh mixing with Knife Guy's growl. My mistake was running toward that light, thinking I could find help. The horror of their trap is crushing, and the scary truth is, I've played into their hands. I back away, but the truck's headlights flare, pinning me. Hoodie Guy steps from the shadows, holding the lantern, his smirk gone, eyes cold. The disturbing reality hits. They're done playing. I turn to run, but Sadie's there, faster than I expected, a syringe in her hand. I swing the pocket knife, catching her arm, but she jabs me, the needle burning. My legs buckle, the scary sensation of my body betraying me overwhelming. I hit the ground, the knife slipping, and Hoodie Guy's on me, tying my wrists with rope. The horror of their efficiency is sickening. They've done this before, too many times. Knife Guy looms, his blade tracing my cheek, not cutting, just teasing. Sadie's humming, like this is a Tuesday night hobby. They drag me to the truck, my vision blurring from the drug. The disturbing part is, they're chatting, casual, like I'm cargo. He lasted longer than the last one, Hoodie Guy says, and Sadie laughs. I think of Reggie, free but lost, and my van, trashed. My biggest mistake was trusting Sadie's warning at the bar. It wasn't caution, it was bait, drawing me to this road, this moment. The horror of how long they've planned this breaks me. They toss me in the truck's bed, the cold metal jarring, and drive, the fog swallowing us. The truck stops at a cabin, hidden deep in the woods, its windows boarded. They pull me inside, the air thick with rot and copper. The scary sight hits. Walls covered in Polaroids, Vanlifers, campers, all smiling, then not. My face is there, snapped at the bar days ago. The horror of their collection is paralyzing. They're not just killers, they're archivists, keeping trophies. Sadie kneels, her sharp eyes soft now, mocking. "You were fun, Theo," she says, like I'm a pet. The disturbing truth is, I'm not special, just next. Knife Guy's sharpening a blade, the sound scraping my nerves. Hoodie Guy's sorting tools, pliers, wire, a saw. The horror of what's coming is unbearable, and I'm fighting the drug, my limbs heavy. I think of Santa Rosa, my old kitchen job, how I should have stayed. My mistake was thinking van life was freedom. It's a magnet for monsters like these. I scream, thrashing, but the ropes burn, and Sadie slaps me, her nails drawing blood. The scary part is, they're not angry, just focused, like artists at work. I spot a loose nail in the floor, rusted but sharp. It's my only shot. I twist, scraping the rope against it, my wrists raw. Knife guy notices, lunging, but I kick, catching his knee. He stumbles, and I'm up, staggering for the door. The disturbing twist hits. Sadie's not stopping me. She's smiling, like she wanted this. I burst outside, the fog blinding, and run, the drugs slowing me. The scary reality is, this is their finale. They let me think I'm escaping to savor the kill. I'm crashing through the woods, branches ripping my skin, the cabin's lantern fading. But the truck's engine roars, headlights sweeping. They're coming, all three, their whistles blending into a sick chorus. The horror of their hunt is complete. I'm not a person to them, just a story for their wall. I trip, my ankle twisting, and collapse in a clearing. The truck stops, doors slamming, and Sadie's voice cuts through. Told you to stay, Theo. The disturbing certainty grips me. They've won. They circle me, knives out, the fog curling like smoke. My final mistake was running. I gave them the chase they craved. The horror of Arcada's darkness swallows me, the redwoods silent witnesses. Knife guy raises his blade, hoodie guy snapping a Polaroid, Sadie humming. I think of Reggie, hoping he's flying free, and whisper an apology to myself for choosing this life. The blade falls, pain searing, and the scary truth is, they'll keep hunting, their cabin filling with faces, mine just one more. The fog closes in, my blood soaking the dirt, the Polaroid capturing my end. The horror of their ritual is final, a cruel masterpiece hidden in Arcada's woods. The tragedy is, I thought I could outrun them, but they were always ahead, their whistles echoing as the world fades. The redwoods stand tall, guarding their secrets, and the disturbing legacy of Sadie's smile lives on, waiting for the next van to park too close.